Before the beginning, the bullfrogs chant as the sky's net sweeps low, guiding the child towards the riverbank. The mud sticks to her knees and squashes beneath her small fingers. Her giggle echoes the low whoops of the frogs. The river runs high after the rains, stained brown but still reflecting the low angle of the setting sun. The clouds lace their fingers together in a fine lattice as the sun shoots beams that slice and refract off the churning waters and the wet leaves. Coated in earth, the child rises from the mud and seeks the sunlight bouncing off of a mossy boulder on the bank. As the light bounces off of the rocks, it reveals the moss embedded in the child's eyes, two perfectly round pebbles bound by fierce curiosity, insatiable and troublesome. The curious little child does not have a real name. Instead, everyone calls her Honeybun. When she came squirming out of her mama, she didn't scream or cry. She emerged with a grin in her toothless mouth and with her mossy eyes wide open, soaking up the world around her. The midwife severed the umbilical cord, cleaned up the baby, and handed her to her mama. "Aren't you just the sweetest little thing," her mama said. "My sweet little Honeybun." Honeybun giggled and squirmed in her mama's arms, her newborn curiosity flaring inside her tiny chest. Now that same curiosity drags Honeybun away from the familiar yard and down towards the river and croaking frogs. A muddy pebble finds its way into Honeybun's mouth, and she rolls it around with her tiny tongue. Earth fills her mouth. She likes the taste, but she spits it out as she continues her steady crawl towards the water's edge. The wet earth clings to Honeybun's hands as the memory of the day's rain hangs in the wet air and in the dripping leaves. Somewhere not too far away on a damp porch, the same wet air and dripping leaves spin webs of dreams in the sleeping eyes of Honeybun's mama. The river chuckles as it calls out for the child to come closer. Honeybun comes. The tree frogs chirp and the bullfrogs shake the wet reeds with their deep calls. Honeybun feels the earth thrumming a deep melody and her tiny heart pounds in tune. The sun's beams slip below the tree line and the crystal lattice in the sky descends as the magnet of the river pulls Honeybun closer and closer. The waters churn and Honeybun's curiosity surges, splashing and mingling in the deep mossy pebbles in the child's eyes. With mud on her belly and in her hair, she reaches her dirty hand towards the rushing water, towards something familiar and new, towards something that deep down she knows belongs to her. The roaring seas of the universe surged with chaos, until the curious hand stilled the water. Pulling a bead above the surface, there, the water drop stays suspended, above the end of the world. In the beginning. The morning light pressed on the dirty glass under the weight of the gray sky. The light passed by the spider's web in the window pane and slipped into the room. Slowly the light drifted. Dresser, toy truck, 5 small children snoring under the sheets of a large bed. The morning light reached into the far corner of the room toward a doll's cot where a small lumpy shape hid beneath the sheets. The light stirred each of the children from the realm of dreams, and one by one they slipped out of the room. The waking world blew a breeze that rustled the covers of the small cot. Slowly, a small scrunched face emerged from the cot's shell. A young boy who had only ever been found in far corners. As his eyes adjusted to the gray light, he took a deep breath and readjusted to the solitude of the waking world. Climbing out of his stiff metal cot in the corner, he dressed and slinked down the hall towards the sounds and smells of the other children, the violent shrieks, laughter, and sugar. The boy from the corner lived in an old orphanage that had operated for decades in a small town nestled next to the river. The orphanage was a bizarre structure. Most of the nuns figured that the building had originally been a farmhouse, but countless extensions, demolitions, and reconstructions had left the building lopsided, discolored, and sagging. On the second story, the floor sloped steeply, and each wall was made of a different material: crumbling bricks and old stones and peeling wood. During winter, the nuns sealed off the west wing of the building, where the wind slipped through the thin walls and froze the floors. The boy from the corner could not remember having lived anywhere else besides the orphanage. Unlike the other children, the boy from the corner did not speak, nor did he laugh, nor did he cry. The nuns had tried tickling and spankings, but when all of their attempts failed to extract any sound from the boy, they gave up and figured he was mute. "No one will ever adopt you if you cannot speak," they told him. He looked back at their condescending faces with eyes like empty wells, void of expression. The nuns decided that the boy must be dumb. The other children watched how the nuns treated the boy from the corner and mimicked the behavior. They mocked him and taunted him and hit him, and still he remained silent. They took his toys from him and kicked him at night until he left the shared bed, and the only place left for him was the corner of the room. Eventually the nuns and the other kids ignored him altogether. He became nothing more than a forgotten object. By the time he had turned 10 years old, the boy from the corner still had never made a sound, much less a friend. As he descended the crooked stairs, the boy could taste the rising heat of the day, and he dreaded the long list of sweaty chores ahead of him. During the summer, the nuns supplemented the children's Bible studies with long hours of manual labor to keep the orphanage in working order. Slipping past the arguing children and the shouting nuns, the boy now saw his solitude in the prayer room, hoping to avoid the hardest of the morning's tasks for just a little while longer. On quiet feet, he slid down the short hallway and took the 3 steps down into the prayer room, where the floor lay several feet below surface level. The prayer room maintained a strange solidity compared to the rest of the noisy, disjointed spaces that composed the orphanage. With a stone floor and brick walls, the prayer room served as the foundation for the rest of the structure. The building relied on the steady strength of the room for support and vital function, almost as if the space was the beating heart of the orphanage. The walls were lined with donated Bibles of all shapes, sizes, and stages of decay. On the wall opposite the entryway, a large crucifix hung from the wall with a hyper-realistic depiction of the suffering Christ. Above the bloody crown of thorns, an arched window penetrated the eastern wall, letting in just enough morning light for reading. At all other times of day, reading could only be done by the light of a singular light bulb. The bulb hung in the center of the room, suspended from a barbed wire that snaked across the wall and out the doorway like a varicose vein. As the boy descended the 2 steps into the prayer room, the temperature dropped, and his eyes rose to the backlit head of the suffering Christ. Under the gray morning sunlight peeking through the window, the sharp edges of the thorns appeared as dark blades casting shadows that dug into the stone floor. The boy bowed his head, then went to the shelf, running his fingers along the Bibles until they landed on a hefty volume bound in old faded green leather. Holding the green Bible with both hands, the boy from the corner sank into the pool of light that filled the center of the room. With the green Bible in his lap, he ran his fingers across the dimpled cover where words had long since faded away. The weathered binding creaked as the book opened, but the smooth pages held firm. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. He skipped ahead, passing the old books like old friends. He lingered on Job and landed on Jonah. The boy from the corner had never seen the sea, nor had he ever seen a huge fish. But in the boy's imagination, the sea and the storm and Jonah's captor all flashed in shades of deep blue. In the silence of the prayer room, the boy closed his eyes and recited Jonah's prayer to God in his mind. No words escaped his mouth, but in those moments, the story came alive, and some part of the boy felt like here, in the heart of the orphanage, he was living inside the belly of a huge fish. Later, as he swept the loose floorboards and weeded the kitchen garden, the boy from the corner felt his mind drift to Jonah and his fish. The sensation of being inside of a living thing overwhelmed him. His hands froze in place, and his knees locked, and his eyes trained on the swirls of the wood grain. A thump to the back of the boy's head from a nun ripped him out of the belly of the fish and back to attention. The summer air hung like a wet blanket on the clouds, trapped and viscous. The children called it the soupiest day of summer. The boy from the corner quietly waded through the thick air, working hard at his daily chores. To keep himself entertained while wiping, digging, and sewing, he replayed his favorite stories from the Bible behind his eyes. The stories played on mute and ran in monochromatic clips where each of the characters, prophets, Pharisees, pharaohs, wore fancy suits, top hats, petticoats, and hoop skirts. To the boy from the corner, the stories appeared like they came from the TV in the nun's room, where he once watched a movie with his eye pressed against a crack in the doorframe. While fixing up the outside of the old broken fence, the boy from the corner lost sight of the world in front of him, as it became gradually replaced by the image of a handsomely dressed Jesus Christ, raising a goblet of wine to the table of his disciples, each sporting a fine bow tie. Without his bloody crown of thorns and wounded side, Jesus looked handsome and happy as he celebrated. They passed around the goblet, and Jesus held up a loaf of Wonder Bread, sliced and in a plastic bag. Jesus' body and blood poured out. The sound of other children laughing returned his vision to the world in front of him. Through the wide crack in the fence, the boy from the corner could make out the game of tag unfolding in the front yard. He looked away, ignored the noise, turned back to the movie in his mind, and kept working while daydreaming the stories of the Bible. For the rest of the day, the late summer air stayed pinned between the low clouds and the damp earth. The children finished their chores and trickled in and out of the prayer room between messy meals and trips to the river for water. There, the children gathered, drinking water, washed their clothes, cleaned themselves, and skipped rocks across the flow. Long ago, the nuns had banned the children from swimming past the shallows, but today, as he stood staring across the rushing water, the boy from the corner felt a deep tug in his chest pulling him in. Like his own heartbeat, the moving surface pulsed and spoke to him. It saw him. The boy from the corner waded deeper and deeper into the flowing water until the other kids shouted at the nun on duty, who promptly grabbed the boy's arm and dragged him back to the riverbank where she scolded him. The boy ignored her and looked back over his shoulder at the heartbeat beneath the water. The irritated nun herded the troop of children back to the orphanage where dinner was served. The children were then promptly put to bed as the sun set. The boy curled up in his small cot in the corner and looked out the far window, where the night's darkness descended from outside. The low clouds blocked the full moon's light and breathed deep, wet breaths onto the earth below. The boy from the corner fell asleep, thinking about the river and the men who live inside the huge fish that swim right below the water's surface. The worms come from beyond the blanket, running from the frogs. The worms come to eat the darkness and the silence. They cover the blanket with tiny holes and tears. Their bodies weave worlds out of the silent darkness. The worlds scatter beyond the dark blanket like roaring beads, like beads of water dancing across a scalding pan. The boy from the corner woke up in the morning, sweating and with the taste of dirt in his mouth. The other children had already left the room. He took his deep breath and began another day. After visiting the prayer room and eating breakfast, the boy from the corner began his chores. A nun pointed him towards the garden where an army of weeds had strangled the tomato plants. He did his best to pull up the deep-rooted sprouts with a spade, but the weeds fought back, and the stinging nettle drew blood from the boy's hands. He looked down at his raw fingers and watched a drop of blood trace a path down his pointer finger and hang off the end of his fingertip. The blood drop pulsed with surface tension as the boy from the corner held his finger up to his eye. Inside, the dark red swirled, catching the light of the boy's crimson reflection. Gravity tugged, and the blood drop fell towards the earth. As his blood splashed into the disturbed dirt below, the boy from the corner felt a drop land on the back of his neck. He looked up, and the rain came down. The first few raindrops sent some of the children scattering, and the rest followed after a nun barked an order at them to get inside. Minutes later, the low hot clouds consumed the sun and grieved in full. With whooping howls and barking claps, the clouds returned the water they had borrowed and threw themselves down upon the town next to the river, spinning and sliding across the old roof of the ramshackle orphanage. Under the pressure of the assault, some of the ancient shingles fled the roof and rode the watershed down towards the river, joining the flow of old tires, pesticides, and rotting wood. Initially a distant flash and faint rumble, the lightning now erupted amongst the dark sheets, shooting off fireworks in the belly of the sad summer clouds. As the storm wore on and wore out the wet town, the nuns fluttered about like moths, grabbing buckets and towels. The orphanage became a boat smashed against the rocks as water streamed in. The water found the deep cracks where winter blew her breath. The water noticed the missing shingles and the clogged gutters. The water gathered on the edges of the sunken foundation and slipped through the thin gaps where the brick walls left open seams. Not even the prayer room, the stone heart of that old structure, would be kept safe from the storm. While running to grab another bucket, the boy from the corner passed by the doorway to the prayer room. He noticed a strange reflection in the darkness. He descended the 3 steps into the room. He felt the water flood his socks. He fumbled around in the wet dark as his hands groped around for the string attached to the light bulb. The storm peeked in through the small arched window and flashed bright eyes, scattering light behind the silhouette of the crucifix. The light shot like a laser around the room, showing the boy the flooding heart of the orphanage. His hand caught the string to the light. He pulled on it. The light bounced off the brick walls, which wept onto the shelves of Bibles. Several old volumes had already fallen and lay partially submerged on the stone floor. Tears streamed down the face of the suffering Christ, and blood dripped from his crown, splashing beneath his feet, swirling and staining the pool. Panic flashed through the boy's chest as he searched for his weathered green Bible. He scanned the shelf where the book normally sat and found nothing. Frantically, he looked at the bloated books floating in the rising water, but he could not find any green suspended in the dirty water. To the boy, nothing else in the whole world seemed to matter but that green Bible. The water rose to his shins as he splashed in circles around the room, picking up and dropping destroyed Bibles with brown covers, red covers, black covers, but none of them were green. Outside, the clouds poured out their hearts with even greater strength, and the prayer room drank their tears. The water level quickly passed the 3-step threshold, rising beyond the boy's thighs. Rain hit the open roof and descended through the layers of the orphanage, soaking the wooden ceiling, sliding along the exposed wire, down the solitary light bulb, becoming a water drop. The water hung, suspended before falling and hitting the boy in the center of his forehead. That's exactly when he saw it, a fish. Swimming in the pool of water and pushing aside the bloated corpses of the Bibles, the fish sparkled in shades of leathery green under the wet, lonely light bulb. 2 eyes like yellow pearls swiveled and pivoted, seeking escape. The fish caught the flow of the water up the steps and out into the hall. The boy from the corner blinked, the empty wells in his eyes filled with water. With only the fish in mind, he waded up the stairs and out into the hall. Behind him, the crackling light bulb shook and spat and traced drops of blood and tears that flowed down Christ's head. Pushing past the shouting nuns and scrambling children, the boy from the corner scanned the floor of the flooding hall for a glimpse of the fish, spotting the flash of a green tail as it turned the corner. He splashed around the corner, watching as the fish aimed for the orphanage's closed back door. In the dim light, the fish approached the door and turned around. It aimed its 2 yellow eyes onto the boy who followed him. Their eyes met and they communicated. They held still as water sprayed through the door's seams. The fish wanted the boy to open the door, but the boy did not want to say goodbye to the fish. The fish understood the boy's hesitation. The fish told him that he did not have to say goodbye. The boy could come with him. The boy from the corner hesitated. He did not know what to do. But as he held eye contact with the fish, he felt himself decide. His head nodded. With the wells in his eyes overflowing, the boy from the corner reached out his hand, opened the door to the storm, and followed the fish. The darkness of the night struggled to catch its breath under the water that poured into every crack and crevice. The air and the oxygen had no choice but to retreat. The town next to the river became the town swept away by the river. The storm traced the destruction from above, shooting blasts of lightning at the earth, catching illuminated glances. Beneath the surface, the leathery green fish swelled in the flowing waters and growing into a magnificent creature with enormous golden eyes like a car's headlights. The boy who followed the fish did his best to keep up with the pace of the fish. In the soaked darkness of the storm's night, the boy's memory of the yard helped lead him to the edge of the fence. But as the fish trudged ahead and grew in size, the boy lost his footing to the rushing water. He looked into the distance towards the fish's eyes, 2 fading yellow lights. He tried to continue pushing forwards. Lost in the swirl of emotion, the storm became opportunistic and wrathful in its grief. The clouds descended and roared at the boy who followed the fish, knocking him off of his feet. The storm threw the boy into the churning void of the flood. As he slid beneath the mud and the roots of the dead trees, the boy clung to his consciousness and retreated into himself, a skill he had mastered years ago. Deep inside, the boy sealed his walls until not even a drip of water could come in. He curled into a tight ball in the corner of his mind. He tried to tell himself a story from his Bible, but under the pressure of the raging waters, his memories failed him. Instead, he clung to the solitude, staying completely still, wrapped up like a macadamia nut buried deep inside of its shell. The clouds drained themselves. They kept their eyes open, tracing the faint golden light that had escaped from the old orphanage. They watched as the 2 yellow beams pulsed and dodged in the flash flood. Unlucky fish, forgotten pets, dead trees, hollow RVs, old barns, whole worlds washed away. The 2 lights swerved off their set course and shot downstream through the flood. In a brief moment of remorse, the storm realized what it had done, how it had struck the boy, and so with a beacon of lightning, the clouds led the fish towards the drowning boy, who followed the fish into the storm. The mud obscured the fish's vision, but the fish had golden sight that penetrated light and reorganized the world into vibrant fields of energy that crackled and bent. Upon finding the misshapen ball of a small boy, the green fish opened its jaws wide and swallowed him whole. There, inside of the storm, inside of the river, inside of the fish, inside of his walls, the boy curled up even deeper inside of himself, into a silence that even the storm could hear from far above. As the water level rose, the rickety old orphanage drowned. 12 hours into the rain, the nuns admitted defeat and gathered up the children, pushing them up the stairs to the unstable second floor. The water splashed and jumped and lifted the second floor like a raft. It carried the nuns and the children off into the future where the boy from the corner had never even existed. The storm wailed and moaned and lashed the town next to the river for another 24 hours. By the time the sheets of rain subsided, the river's banks had stretched their arms into the streets of the town, carrying off everything and anyone that hadn't been nailed down. Inside of himself, the boy who followed the fish into the storm lost time. Like mud in a clenched hand, the minutes and hours squished out of the boy's mind and rinsed away in the river waters. The wells in his eyes overflowed and overwhelmed the boy. In between long, deep breaths, he poured the last ounces of his strength into the desperate struggle of keeping his eyes shut, of holding back the flood from the inside, which desperately wanted to meet the flood on the outside. The huge green fish followed the flow of the surging waters. Instinct took over and guided the fish in a bizarre series of turns and loops, down to the riverbed and back up again. To an ignorant eye, the fish looked deranged or ill, as it moved erratically. The fish circled a large boulder for a few hours before hopping out of the water, splashing back down into the river. For the huge green fish, the return home could not be a linear endeavor. The fish knew where it needed to go, but it also knew that it must take its time getting there. And so for 3 days straight, anyone from the town who ventured near the river could have easily spotted the huge green fish with golden eyes, flipping and spinning and splashing up and down the river's wide, muddy banks. As complete exhaustion approached, the great fish knew home was close. Pouring out the last drops of energy, the huge fish shrank like a grape in the sun. The green leather sucked and puckered, and the great yellow orbs became tiny glass beads. Within minutes, the fish that had been the size of a horse was now a minnow, too small to fight the river's current. The homegoing was destined, and so, strained beyond limits, the fish sought a portal, a doorway. Under the river's surface, the fish could see the broad shadow cast by a fallen tree. It had fallen in the flood, and now stretched across the flowing water, forming a bridge from one riverbank to the other. Straining up the current, the fish passed beneath the old trunk, and felt the searing chill of the great shadow. The fish pushed and pushed through the pain and the resistance, and then, like a bubble popping, the tiny green fish passed into the light of a new sun. They had crossed the bridge. The fish had returned home with the boy, still buried deep inside of its stomach.
The room. The boy inside of the fish was on a straw floor in a dark room. Only a short candle in the middle of the room provided light to the space, nearly burnt to the wick. The flame shook from an invisible wind despite the window being closed and the curtains drawn. The air in the room was still. The candle sat on a small, rickety table. There was nothing else in the room besides the boy, the table, and the melting candle. In the dark light of the shifting flame, the walls took on a shadowy orange cast. The boy tried to remember what had happened, but all he could recall was the open door, the fish, and the storm. And now, here he was. He tried rising from the floor, but his body ached and his arms fell limp at his sides. The energy rushed out of him, and he felt the overwhelming need to sleep. So he blew out the candle and retreated inwards away from the dark. The hand looks enormous even though its features are tiny. The round fingers belong to a baby, a giant baby. Descending from the mist high up above, the great baby hand extends its pointer finger. The gravitational field of the hand pulls at the waters of the oceans, and they rise. The fish watch like stranded ants from far below, and amongst them a green fish carries a boy on his back. The boy holds fast to the leathery scales as he waves back and push in a rush to meet the great baby hand. Night has descended, and yet every detail of the ocean's surface shines in crystal detail. The moonlight glows beyond the sunset and blesses the baby's smooth skin, shimmering like pearls. The hand extends all 5 fingers and meets the chaos of the ocean. The waters bend and clasp the hand of the baby. Where they touch, the air sparkles under the moon who sings her sweet lullaby. The world's tides pull and bend like ribbons, water and night swirling into the hand. The fish swim up the terrific arc of water, up and up and up into the clouds and up along the arm of the baby. They pass the gates of heaven, and the moon sings a farewell lament. On the back of the fish, the boy cascades across the waters of the earth, faithfully following the baby into the night, into the stars, into the fullness of space. The boy inside of the fish woke up to knocking at the door. "Hey boy, how are you feeling?" a muffled voice said from the other side. With his fading dreams still clogging his vision, the boy blinked until reality took shape. Light glowed from the curtained window. The boy inside of the fish pulled himself to his feet, and he took a few sore steps towards the door. The knocking resumed. "Hey kid, are you still asleep? You ought to eat something." the muffled voice said. At the thought of food, the boy's stomach ached. He took the final step to the wooden door and cracked it open. Daylight sliced into the room. The boy peered out, his eyes struggling to adjust to the sudden change. The light was white and blinding, but he could make out a stocky silhouette. He watched as the dark form became a short old woman with wiry white hair. The light danced across the wrinkles of her face, which rolled over her collar and onto her tight apron. She wore a light blue skirt with long sleeves rolled up to her elbow, revealing arms pocked with the lumps and bumps of old age. The boy inside of the fish thought of the old nun who had died when he was 8, but even she looked young compared to the woman in front of him. The boy's eyes drifted up to meet the eyes of the old woman, but he could not find them. It looked as if her eyes had been made of lead and that gravity had done the rest. The eyes sunk deep inside of the woman's head, and wide, freckled wrinkles slouched across the open holes left behind. "Ah, there you are, boy," the old woman, with a smile that was missing plenty of teeth. "I brought something for you to eat, to regain some of your strength. You're a growing boy, and it seems like you took quite the tumble." In her gnarled hands, she held a small ceramic plate with sliced fruits and nuts. "It's been a long time since we've seen a young boy like you around here," she said. "I hope this will do." Without a word, the boy inside of the fish reached out and took the plate from the old woman, carefully avoiding any skin contact. With the plate secured in his hands, he quickly retreated from the light, sneaking in through the crack, and closed the door firmly. "If you need anything at all, just give a holler," said the muffled voice on the other side of the door. Through the closed door, the voice sounded crooked. The boy inside of the fish had the uncanny feeling that when the door was closed, the voice no longer belonged to the old woman. With the door shut, the boy inside of the fish once again scanned the room as he nibbled on the fruits and nuts. The room was small, less than 100 square feet, and since daylight had creeped in from the cracked door, he figured that he must be inside some kind of standalone structure. A hut composed of a single room. The melted candle stood still in the pool of hardened wax on the short table. When the boy ran his finger over the glossy pool, it felt hard as steel. He investigated the mud walls and the straw floor, and like the moth, he followed the flow of light towards the closed curtains. Carefully, he lifted the corner of the curtain and peeked out at the world beyond. The light blinded him, his eyes adjusted, and he could just barely make out the vibrant blue of a sunny day and the emerald glow of healthy leaves. The longer the boy inside of the fish looked out the window, the brighter the colors appeared, and the more confused he became. Everything seemed strangely filtered. From the window, the boy could not see the ground. Only bright white light casted blue and green. He felt like he was lying on his back, looking straight up into the sun. The boy felt a wave of nausea and snapped the curtains shut before falling back onto the floor and curling into a ball. Tears pushed at the edges of his eyes, so he squeezed them shut even tighter. With his knees to his chest, the boy's mind drifted down a stream of random thoughts and scenes from the Bible until he collided with a white dam that blocked the flow. His Bible, the book, the green fish. Where had it gone? In a panic, the boy inside of the fish sat up suddenly and felt a great surge of dizziness shake the hut. The straw sent up a great puff of dust, and the boy collapsed back down onto the floor, unconscious. The sky whirled above and the dirt whirled below, a world sandwiched between endless worlds, extending infinitely in every direction. Water drops, clouds, and volcanoes. His eyes can see through the earth. Buried deep below the surface, he sees caves spiraling below the earth's skin. He looks up and watches worms fly through the clouds of roots and rocks. The great rhizome pulses and bursts like shooting stars. The belly of the river sways. The mud and the rocks bend like straw underfoot. Down here, a little farther down, it always drains into this dark, eternal flow. The river beneath the earth, the river upon the earth, the river above the earth. His fins push against the flow, pull up and push like a cicada. This is the unearthing. This is the emerging. He imagines the surface, light, and the flavor of the air. His eyes will no longer see through the earth. Up above, where rhythm becomes sound, sound deceives, sight fails. Still, he swims upstream. He becomes a blue whale, straddling worlds for breath. You cannot stay in here forever, boy. Get up, out of the womb, out of the earth, out of the water, out of the belly. Gasp in the fresh air. The boy inside of the fish woke up. His mouth swung wide open, gasping as his lungs screamed, but his eyes stayed shut. He choked down gulps of fresh air and shook with painful shudders. Shh, shh, it's okay, you're okay, a faraway voice said as a firm but gentle hand held his hand at his side. Painful pulses shot through his lungs, but slowly his breathing became less panicked, stable. Still his eyes stayed shut, squeezed painfully tight. Days passed and the boy's eyes stayed shut. Passing voices blurred into an unintelligible fuzz. The boy from the fish's mouth felt a cloth come and go from his forehead. He felt bandages wind and unwind. When a small dish was brought to his lips, he opened his mouth and drank and ate. With the wells in his eyes sealed shut, the boy from the fish's mouth tried to understand what the world around him must look like. Initially, the boy assumed he must still be inside that dirt hut, but the room sounded much larger than that private space. Voices seemed to float in the air and bounce in circles, floating up to the ceiling. The boy also noticed the way warmth crept up to the length of his body as the day passed. Warm toes meant morning. Warmth on his face meant the sun was setting. Some days the sound of humans at work would reach him on his bed, women chatting and the occasional shout. On the quietest days, the boy from the fish's mouth heard the distant sound of moving water. Entirely focused, the boy would leave his body and follow the moving water, but a gentle and firm hand held his spirit down, and the wind-kissed leaves hid the water from his ears. Hey, little one, if you can, you should try to stand or sit up. You may start getting bed sores if you stay here on this bed any longer, a familiar voice said to the boy. As had always been the case, the boy said nothing in return, but he understood. 3 days later, the boy felt the touch of a firm and gentle hand, and he reached out, bracing himself. The hand braced him in return, and together his mind and body lifted away from the earth. Still, the boy from the fish's mouth kept his eyes squeezed tight. That's right, just like that. You're doing great. How's that feel? The familiar voice said. The boy gave no reply. 3 days later, the boy began to sit up on his own. The familiar voice and the gentle hand knew that the boy would soon be ready to walk. Would you want to try walking? The familiar voice asked. The boy did not reply, but he thought about the question. He knew he would first need to open his eyes, but he felt afraid. Down at the bottom of the deep sealed wells, the boy from the fish's mouth looked up. Even down here in the dark, the light still managed to seep through the cracks. Wherever the light touched, it burned images into the walls of the well, vivid and overwhelming. The boy tried to make out the pictures, but after so much darkness, the wild color hurt and left him exhausted. He tried again and again until he could no longer look at all, and then he slept. Light filters through the skin of the paper. The silhouette of words drip down the page and splash into the deep wells. Rain catchers. The groundwater swells. He flips the page. In the boy's hand, the gratuity of the wet book. He rests the weight on the gill-lined spine on his hip. Fingers tenderly lift soaked pages, running words. The green leather turns slimy, soaking moss. In the fluid, the letters change and trade and drift. The water translates into and out of the language. The book bulges with creation, sacrifice, salvation. The boy's arms ache under the written knowledge. His hold grows weak, his resolution grows thin. Like the wet paper, the rip becomes inevitable. The tearing of the hand, the fall into the earth. In air, book becomes fish, alive, thrashing. From the bridge above, the boy watches the fish fall. Gravity sends the fish screaming towards the earth, the moving waters. This is the raindrop. The time spent falling becomes relative, infinite. The water drop, the green fish, the great book, a loss and a temporary reality before impact. The boy watches the falling fish pull farther and farther ahead, below, away from his hands. Now he feels the weight of the decision. Here he is on the bridge. Look up, down, drop, fall, jump. The bridge lifts into the air, a great cloud. The boy falls after the fish. The water drop. His eyes open.
The village. The boy who is inside of the fish opens his eyes inside of the village. He rests, he recovers. He is cared for by the old woman with sunken eyes. The boy has never been cared for before. The boy who is inside of the fish heals. The old woman with sunken eyes welcomes the boy into her home. The boy begins to walk. He explores the village. He learns that only old women live here. The old women show the boy their world. The village is ringed by a great forest on all sides, except for a thin clearing to the river. Each old woman keeps a candle burning in her room. The old women feed him, talk at him, dress him up. The old women give the boy a candle of his own. He lights his candle. He becomes the boy of the village. Each old woman has spent her life learning a craft. Their crafts have developed over long years of hard work and resourcefulness. Each craft uses material from the river washed downstream from other worlds. Hair flushed down the drain is spun and woven into scarves and blankets. Fallen trees and old plywood carved on the lathe become bowls and tables. Clay raised from the river's banks turned into cups and pots. Scraps of metal and rocks and gems joined and clasped. Forgotten dreams washed away by the morning's light captured on stone. The weavers, the carvers, the sculptors, the jewelers, and the stone dreamers. The old women load up a magical self-driving wagon once a week. The women send their crafts to be sold elsewhere by someone else. The old women do not care who buys their crafts. The old women live for the making. The boy of the village learns the crafts. He collects spools of hair and weaves a scarf for the old woman with sunken eyes. He whittles ash branches into schools of wooden fish. He gathers clay in the river and pinches pots. He finds a ruby lodged in a river's rocky beach and sets it in silver. His natural talent shines in his skill as a stone dreamer. The old woman with sunken eyes beams with pride. The old woman with sunken eyes wakes the boy before the sunrise each day. They hold hands and walk to the river at dawn. The boy and the woman cast their buckets under a rising sun. The river flows, turning from black to orange to blue. The boy of the village pulls in the heavy buckets of water. They carry the morning's dream water to the studio. The old woman with sunken eyes carefully sieves the water. She uses tweezers to pick out the vivid dreams in the sediment. The boy of the village takes the dream fragments and spreads them across limestone. He grains the limestone with the levigator. The old woman with sunken eyes trades jobs with him when his arms become tired. They repeat the process until the dream image appears. The dream images on the stone look faded and lost. The old woman seals the image with tree gum. The boy reinforces the image into the stone with a weak acid. The old woman and the boy take a break. The boy cleans the stone surface with water from the river and exposes the image. The old woman with sunken eyes uses a leather roller to apply ink to the dream image. The boy sponges the stone with water. They place a large sheet of paper onto the inkstone. The boy runs the stone and the paper through a stone press. The old woman lifts the dream print off of the stone. She hangs the dreams to dry in the sun on a clothesline. The dreams flutter on the line in the afternoon breeze. The boy of the village grains the limestone with sand and resets the surface. The old woman returns to the river sediment. She picks out dream fragments. They do it all over again. Over and over. The boy of the village watches and learns. The boy of the village remains silent. He wants to ask questions about his fish and the Bible, but he does not. The boy wonders where the old woman found him, but he says nothing. The old women never mention the fish. The old women do not speak of their lives or childhoods. The old women do not read. The old women do not own books. The old women tell stories while they work. The boy listens.
The old tree, as told by an old weaver as threads flow back and forth in her hands. Well, listen here, little one. A long, long time ago, in the forest just over there was an enormous oak tree. I think it was a white oak. Well, I suppose it doesn't really matter. Regardless, there was a very, very big and old tree in the center of the forest. Every person in the forest knew the tree. Every bird and bug and old lady had seen the tree. In fact, from a good vantage point, the tree could have been seen from anywhere in the forest, and that's how big it was. The old tree had seen a whole lot in its long life, and so all of the people thought that the tree must be very knowledgeable. Everyone called it the Tree of Knowledge. Back in those days, under the branches of the Tree of Knowledge, every person could communicate easily with every other person. The birds would talk to the squirrels, who would talk with the grasses, who would talk to the little boys that looked just like you. The old big bears would have long discussions with the tiniest mice, and the worms would sing songs for all to hear as the sun set. Words flowed easily, and miscommunication was unheard of. Many say that the Tree of Knowledge stored and protected all of the people's languages in its enormous heartwood, almost like a living library. The forest was a safe and happy place during the time of the Tree of Knowledge. Year after year, the forest flourished, and yet peace and safety were not enough for some time. One day, a young human boy, not too unlike you, became curious about what the heartwood must look like, what powers it might hold. That night, in his tiny cabin, the young human boy told his 6 brothers about his idea, about the power of the heartwood. The boys discussed and they agreed. The Tree of Knowledge ought to share. It was not fair that the big tree got to hoard all of its powerful wood while the intelligent humans had to make use of the scraps left behind by the small, weak trees and share amongst the other people, the unintelligent animals and the immobile plants. Their curiosity became jealousy. The boys in the cabin crafted a plan. The next night, under the darkness of a new moon, the young human boy led the other 6 brothers through the night with a candle lantern in one hand and an axe in the other. When they reached the Tree of Knowledge, they began to chop. The sounds of their chopping echoed as they cut through the bark and reached the heartwood that glowed like gold in the lamplight. The tree was far too big to cut down in one night, but each brother took as much timber as they could in their arms and carried it home before the sun rose. In the morning, the people of the forest were horrified by the missing chunks of wood, but what could they do? The damage had been done. Back in the cabin, the 7 boys discovered that the heartwood did in fact have magical powers. When carved into a tool, the enchanted wood became autonomous. Wooden spoons stirred on their own, and wooden wheels turned freely. In fact, the wagon that comes and goes from our village is made of that same wood. When the 7 boys saw these magical properties, they wanted more. And so, each night for 2 weeks, they'd sneak into the night, and the sounds of their chopping would echo across the forest. The other humans saw what the boys did, and they followed. Over those 2 weeks, 7 boys grew into a troop of nearly 100 men. Each night, the moon grew brighter, shining light on the destruction. The owls and the raccoons looked on from the neighboring trees, but no one dared to stop the echoing of the axes as they went chop, chop, chop. Hold on, wait 1 second, boy. I just need to focus for a moment as I pull this thread here. Okay. Where was I? Yes, the chopping. The tree was so enormous that even after being chopped for nearly 2 weeks by 100 men, the Tree of Knowledge still stood proud even as its leaves began to fall. On that day, the people of the forest were in uproar. A decision had been made to confront the human boys who were destroying the Tree of Knowledge, but the humans ignored the people. They could no longer understand the voices of others. On the night of the full moon, the young, curious boy led the axe-wielding crowd to the tree with his candle lamp. The boy was happy and laughing with the others, all of them drunk on the power of the magical wood. Despite the light of the moon and the lamp, the boy did not watch his step. As he approached the tree, he tripped over a wide root, and the candle lamp flew out of his hand ahead of him. The effect was immediate. The tree of knowledge burned for 2 whole weeks until the next new moon. On that night, the forest was plunged into total darkness. When the sun rose over the charred remains of the people of the tree, the people of the forest gathered. Moments before the people lost the language of the tree, they voted to banish the humans forever, to seek revenge until the end days of the forest. And so, any human who sets foot inside of the forest will find themselves cursed, lost in an ancient hatred, unwanted, forgotten. Listen to me, boy. The curse is real and it is dangerous. You must never step foot in the forest. Never. Do you understand me? Never forget it. The boy of the village blinks in reply. The boy of the village thinks about the tree which he helps load the wagon. When he helps load the wagon. The boy of the village watches the shadows beyond the forest's edge. The boy's eyes follow the wagon as it disappears into the forest's shadow. The old women tell the boy stories of the shadows becoming monsters. The boy of the village listens to the old woman. The old woman gives the boy everything. The boy of the village has never received so much. So much attention, so much affection, so much care, so much fear.
The candle, as told by an old jeweler as she applies pearl inlay to a pendant. A long time ago, there was a man and a woman who decided to marry. It was a love marriage, and a happy one. The two families of the couple came together and joined as a single family with a feast. That night, the newly married couple slept in the same bed. Little boy, have you ever wondered where new humans come from? Maybe, maybe not. Well, I'll tell you anyway. It's about time a boy of your age learned. When a man and a woman want to have a child, they share a bed together. They go to sleep, and in the morning, if the man had a great dream while they lay together, then the woman becomes pregnant with that dream. The first night, the newly married couple slept together. The husband had no dreams. His sleep was fast, empty, and refreshing. The wife, however, dreamed many dreams, huge, fantastical, impossible dreams. Her sleep was long, dense, and exhausting. When the couple woke, they spoke of their sleep and decided they would continue trying to make a baby and for the nights to come. Weeks passed, and the husband could not dream no matter how hard he tried. Meanwhile, the wife grew ill from the intensity of her dreams, which seemed to grow in volume and scale every night. She woke each morning feeling bone-tired. The couple sought help from a wise and respected old woman who lived alone on the border between the town and the forest. The old woman provided medicine and dream readings. The people of the village revered her. The old woman spoke with the couple and interpreted the wife's endless dreams. The wise woman told the married couple that they had been touched by a dark force. Without assistance, they would never have a child. However, the couple was in luck. The old woman had a solution. The couple needed to beat the darkness with light, so she gave the married couple a tall candle. The old woman had long ago learned the many ways that the human soul resembles a flame. She explained to the couple that by lighting and maintaining the candle, they would banish the dark and invite a new human soul into their home. She gave them one warning. Candles are very powerful objects. The couple must never let the flame go out, lest the soul of their child would be extinguished. The married couple hurried home, lit the candle, and climbed into bed to sleep. The husband dreamed of the candle in a bright orange flame, and for the first time in weeks, the wife slept without interruption. When she woke up, she was pregnant. When the child, a baby girl, was born 9 months later, the candle flame still burned confidently. Only a few drops of wax had melted away. As the girl grew up, the couple told the child about the wise woman and her warning. The girl must always protect the candle. The girl aged into a woman, and she kept her candle close and safe. When the young woman found a husband of her own, she decided she wanted to have a child. So she procured a candle much like her own. She lit the new candle and placed it next to her candle before going to sleep next to her new husband. He dreamed of the candle flame, bright and brilliant, and in the morning, the woman was pregnant. The woman's husband loved her very much. but secretly he feared the candles. The flames felt supernatural, and at night the light in the room bothered him. He struggled to sleep. The woman explained to him how the candles must be kept safe no matter what. She explained the candle's power. She told him that if her flame were to be extinguished, her life would be lost. He told her he believed her, but in his heart, he doubted. When the woman and her husband welcomed a new baby girl into the world, the two candles seemed to burn a little brighter. A few weeks after the birth, the woman's husband woke in the middle of the night. It was a new moon, and the man had dreamed of absolute darkness, of extinguishing the candle. His curiosity had woken him from his sleep, and he wondered, what did total darkness feel like? He went to the two candles, the woman's and the baby's. He licked the tips of his finger. He hesitated, but he was curious. He reached forward and he put out the baby's flame. The baby screamed out in pain. The woman woke up and saw what the man had done. She screamed. He was no longer her husband. The woman buried her child and fled the town with a bundle of candles. She found a home by the edge of the forest. Under the full moon, she lit one candle, placing it next to her own. She got into her bed and slept and dreamed of the flame, tall and strong. When she woke up in the morning, she was pregnant. 9 months later, she had a baby girl. Young boy, the candle of life is sacred. Your soul is a flame and you must protect it. This world will try to extinguish your candle. You must never let that happen. The boy of the village blinks in reply. The boy of the village watches the candle in his room at night. The boy of the village remembers sleeping in total darkness, the orphanage. He wonders how the wax never melts away. He holds his hand near the flame but feels no heat. He watches the flame shiver. The boy of the village closes his eyes. He turns away from the light. He falls asleep. Human candles with arms and legs. Candle humans born tall and stiff. Candle humans live lives burning away. Candle humans grow old and slump over. Candle humans die, submerged in the melted pools of their lives. The flame will go out. Darkness returns. The boy of the village wakes up with his eyes closed. He opens his eyes, looking at his bedside table. The candle flickers. It's dawn. The boy of the village gets out of bed. He goes to the river with the old woman with sunken eyes.
The story of Turtle, as told by the old woman with sunken eyes while selecting dreams. Ah, my sweet boy, it's about time I tell you an important story. A story much older than this village, even older than this world. A long time ago, before there was land here, there was only the river. No one knew where the waters of the river came from, and no one knew where they went. There was just the river. The river flowed from world to world. It brought treasures and took objects that had been left behind and forgotten. The river was a kind of exchange, a trade. One day, the river's flow carried off an abandoned turtle egg, which hatched in the swirling waters. The baby turtle floundered until it finally came to rest on a piece of driftwood. The turtle watched worlds come and go, and the turtle grew. In the expanses of the river, the turtle ate freely and grew even larger. By the time the turtle reached maturity, it had grown to the size of a large island. Soon enough, debris began to accumulate on the back of the great turtle. Layers of dirt formed upon the shell, followed by a handful of seeds and then some birds. Soon enough, trees with shallow roots were sprouting from the shell, and small critters were digging burrows in the soil. The turtle, with its head underwater, could feel the world building on its back, but did not understand what was happening. The turtle was still quite young. When it spotted a big tasty carp, the turtle dove beneath the surface of the river, gobbling up its catch. The trees and the critters drowned. When the turtle resurfaced, it was confused by the sudden stillness on its back. The turtle pondered this question for many days and many nights until the dirt and the trees and critters returned. More people followed. Bears and bobcats, and even human families on small boats came to the island. The turtle was pleased to feel the movement of life on its back, but once again, the temptation of the fish below drew the turtle beneath the surface of the river, drowning the world on the turtle's back. The turtle felt remorse upon resurfacing, and so, after thinking for many days and nights, the people warily returned and the turtle made them a promise. The turtle promised a flood warning for the life on the back of its shell, so that every life might have the chance to prepare or escape. The turtle's promise manifested itself as a living being. The turtle named the promise, this being, after itself, Turtle. Now, I know that's a little confusing, but Turtle did not look like a turtle. Apparently, Turtle stood on two legs, like you and I. He wore many shades of green that covered him from head to toe, like seaweed or algae. He could walk and hear and see the world, but like you, he could not speak. Instead, he sang like a bird and danced. His song and dance communicated his message. Soon, the world will be flooded. When the turtle decided that it was time to submerge, it sent Turtle out into the world. Turtle was amazed by the tall trees and the singing birds. Turtle loved the sunlight and the moonlight, and the beauty inspired his dance and his song. He spent many days praising the world's beauty with his performance, and all the people, critters, plants, humans, stopped to watch. As his dance ended, he sang a sad melody, and the people understood. The world was to be drowned. Many fled. Days later, when the turtle submerged beneath the river's surface, only a few drowned, including Turtle. For eons, the cycle repeated as the island on the turtle's back traveled across the river, from the shore of one world to another. Once every 1,000 or so years, Turtle returned to the surface as a warning and sacrifice, fulfilling the turtle's promise. Something different happened the last time the turtle re-emerged from the river. The critters and the trees and the people returned, bringing more humans than ever. Initially, the new humans were helpful and took care of the turtle's shell. The forest flourished. The tree of knowledge was cut down, but some of these new humans were sick with an insatiable greed. The tree of knowledge was cut down, and the humans were banished to the edges of the land. It has been over 2,000 years since Turtle last came to this world. The cycle is long overdue. Maybe the human illness has something to do with it. Maybe Turtle is not ready? I do not know. No one knows. These are uncertain times. We must live every day to its fullest, savor the sunlight and the pleasure of completing a craft. I have lived a long, happy life, and these last few moments with you have been among the happiest. If Turtle were to come tomorrow, I could die knowing that every moment I spent here in this world was well spent. But you are young. If you ever meet Turtle or see Turtle, and you will know if you see him or meet him, then you must flee this place. Make a boat and sail away on the river. Your life is just beginning. You're so young. The boy of the village blinks in reply.
The Black Mass. Years pass and the boy of the village grows up. He makes breakfast every day for the old woman with sunken eyes. She loves the boy of the village. She sees him as the real child she never had. The boy of the village begins to grow stubble above his lip, and he begins to wonder. He often remembers his Bible, the book, the fish. He misses words on paper. The candle in his room flickers. The films of Jesus and his suit fade from the boy's memory. The boy of the village opens his eyes and finds blind spots. The boy of the village becomes curious. He opens unopened drawers and closed doors. The boy spends hours looking at the shadows of the forest. The boy watches the wagon disappear under the branches. The boy wonders where it goes. The old women notice the changes in the boy of the village. The old women fear his development. The old women want him to stay the boy of the village forever. The old women do not want the boy to grow up. The old women fear the boy's curiosity. The old women feel they must act now or lose the boy. The old woman with sunken eyes disagrees. The boy must grow up. He must change. He is a boy. The other old women disagree. The other old women fear the boy's curiosity too much. The other old women fear the boy's growth. The other old women are sick with the greed. The other old women turn on the old woman with sunken eyes. The other old women enter her room at night. It is the black mass, and the moon is red. The old woman with sunken eyes screams. The boy of the village wakes up to the scream. He hears shouts and moans nearby, next door. He rises and goes to her door with his candle in his hand. He knocks. The scream continues. He tries to open the door, but it's jammed. It only opens a sliver. He watches darkness escape the crack in the door. No candlelight. The screaming blurs into silence. The boy of the village matches the silence. He stands still. Nothing moves. Minutes pass. The candle shudders. The boy of the village hears a voice emerge from the darkness.
"Oh my! Who's there? Oh, is it you, boy? Oh, I'm okay. It was just a bad dream. It's nothing. Don't worry about me. Go back to sleep. I'll see you in the morning."
The voice is high-pitched and thin. The voice does not belong to the old woman with sunken eyes. Darkness seeps into his chest. He finds it hard to breathe. The boy who saw darkness closes the door and stands outside. He hears shuffling inside, but the door remains shut. The boy is tired. He returns to his room. His stomach hurts. He puts his candle down on the bedside table. The candle winks. The moon blinks at the boy through the window. He stares back with his head on the pillow. His heart pounds in his chest. The sound of screaming plays over and over. The boy who saw darkness wakes up covered in sweat. His heart pounds in his chest. He remembers the screaming and the silence. It's all he can think about. He leaves his room and prepares breakfast. The other old women in the kitchen smile at the boy. The other old women look at one another and discuss the weather and their crafts. The other old women do not mention the screaming. The boy who saw darkness brings breakfast to the old woman with sunken eyes. The old woman with sunken eyes says good morning to the boy who saw darkness. She smiles at the boy and looks into his face. Her face collapses in on itself. Her wrinkles fold even deeper. Her shoulders slump. Her body melts in on itself. The boy who saw darkness eats quickly. The other old women continue to talk. But the old woman with sunken eyes does not speak. She eats slowly, methodically. The boy who saw darkness rises to go to the river to gather dream water. The other old women watch the boy as he leaves. The old woman with sunken eyes does not raise her head. The boy who saw darkness goes to the river alone. He thinks about the screaming, his heart beating. He dips his bucket into the water, gathering dreams. He looks into his pail. And there is a green fish. The green fish. The boy sticks his hand into the bucket. He grabs the green fish. The green fish becomes the book in his hand. He slips the book into his waistband and a thin slip of paper falls out. 3 crooked letters look up at him. They feel foreign to his eyes, but he understands. The silhouette of this moment lived inside the boy. R-U-N. Run. The boy who saw darkness knows he must decide quickly. He must act now or never again. He walks back to his room under the gaze of the other old women. He gathers his things in a bag. He slips the book out of his waistband and puts it in the bag. What did you just put in that bag? A silhouette stands in the doorway. Why are you packing a bag? The boy who saw darkness looks up. Where do you think you are going? He looks into the rippling of the deep-set wrinkles. You know that you can't leave. It's too dangerous. Her voice comes out like ash, brittle and empty. Listen to me, boy. I love you. I want to keep you safe. In one hand, she holds a candle. The flame burns bright. She extends her other hand. Now, give me that bag and get back to work on your stone. The wax drips onto her knuckles and the skin of her hand drips onto the floor. The boy who saw darkness holds his bag firmly. You will grow up like us. You will stay with us forever. You'll be one of us. He looks at what used to be the old woman with sunken eyes who had cared for him. You're almost there, boy. Pick up your candle. Follow. Join us. He had loved the old woman with sunken eyes, but this was not her in front of him. I said, pick up your candle, boy. He stares at her and swallows a sob that nearly escapes him. She growls as she drifts forward. The candle flame roars. The boy who saw darkness runs. He dodges the melting hand and bursts into the morning light. The old women are gathered in a circle in the village center. The old women merge with the burning candles in their hands. Puddles of wax pool on the ground. The boy who saw darkness runs as fast as he can. The old women scream after him. The boy who saw darkness feels heat on the back of his neck. He does not look back. He goes where he's been forbidden. He runs towards the forest. He runs into the unknown. In his bag, the book writes itself over and over.
The forest. As his foot crosses the line that restrains the forest edge, the world erupts. Birds scream and the trees shake. And the boy runs, arms tucked close, eyes squeezed shut, wind ripping through his hair. The brown leaves slap him, and the thickets flay his legs as he pounds through the thick understory with great shocks. The world thrums under each football, the soil rippling in the waves, sending beetles into the air and dead leaves settling into the dust. In the boy's wake, worms flood the forest floor, their hearts guided by the tremors, gushing like pimples across the earth's skin. The crows gobble up the worms and follow above in the canopy, riding out the waves on the shivering branches. With his arms pulled tight and his eyes squeezed shut, he runs through the thin branches and becomes an unstoppable force. And so the trees bend and creak as they lean, swaying out of his path, giving way, leading him deeper into the forest. Blind and uncontrollable, the boy enters the depths of the forest. No one can run forever. Eventually, the burning becomes unbearable, the breaths become shallow, the vision tunnels. The running must stop at some point, and so it does. Collapsing to the forest floor, the boy chases after his breath, but he can't catch it. The darkness swims before his closed eyes, and his deep gulps scream like acid. Prone, like a forgotten doll, he lies on the ground and swallows the air that tastes of the earth and dead leaves. As the pounding of his heart eases, the boy in the forest feels a profound sadness. It sinks deep in his bones, and there on the forest floor, he feels like a leaf falling, his stomach suspended in air, drifting down from the canopy far above. He can feel the storm returning all at once. The clouds gather behind his eyes, and thunder shakes his chest as the rain falls. The sealed wells overflow. With his eyes still closed, the boy in the forest cries. He cries hard. The trees above and around the boy in the forest watch. To them, the boy in the forest appears to be the loneliest creature they can imagine. A small, shaking mass curled up to his knees in the throat of the forest, away from the village, away from the women with the sunken eyes, away from the orphanage. What am I supposed to do? Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. Don't know where I am. Don't know how I got here. I don't understand. Why would they do this to me? Will I ever belong anywhere? Will I always be this alone? With his legs and lungs burning, with his eyes squeezing shut, with his heart pounding, the darkness multiplies. The shade of the trees is dense. And in the dark, the understory is clear. The dark hides the boy's body, the body pressing against the thick layer of leaf litter, soft and fluffy and shaking with worms and cocoons and microbes all pulsing and alive in the darkness. Gathering his strength, the boy in the forest swings out his arms and gropes for a tree. His hands fling out around him, and he shuffles on his knees until he collides with grooved bark. The boy runs his fingers across the surface, deep diamond pits crisscrossed like scales. He slides along with his hands guiding him toward the deep, seated embrace of the tree's emerging roots. He turns and rests his back against the tree, gulping down another great breath. The air slides tightly against his dry throat, but the boy has no water to drink and no water left in his system. He cried it all away. Behind the boy's closed eyes, the world swirls, and he struggles to make sense of what is happening, what just happened. He struggles to grasp what he has done to deserve this life. He feels the weight of the book in his bag lean against him. The image of the book forms in his mind, the green leather, the fine pages. The boy in the forest feels his thoughts wander toward Jonah and Job. He remembers their suffering, the tests of their faith. God protected them. Maybe he will protect the boy too. With that thought, the boy in the forest feels able to open his eyes just a bit, and so he does. The sun has nearly set, and the forest floor looks back at him, cast in dark navy greens and toasted browns, desaturated, dark. The boy in the forest feels reality wash over him as the dying light finds his eyes. He left behind the old woman with sunken eyes and all of the other women who cared for him, the only people who ever cared for him. Now, here he is, thoroughly lost, night approaching, body aching. He takes a deep breath and feels the air catch in his throat. He is thirsty. A sudden weight presses behind the boy in the forest's eyes. He holds his breath and looks straight up. He refuses to let the tears out, but he can't survive with his eyes closed. He doesn't even have any more tears left to cry. He looks down. He needs the light to read the book. The light is nearly gone, and the boy suddenly realizes that his time to consult the book today is slipping away. It may have already passed. He quickly reaches into his bag, his fingers savoring the familiar feel of the leather, the comfort and reassurance the book brings him. He pulls out the book and notices how the green seems gray in the dark light. He flips it open to a random chapter and looks down, ready for the nostalgic embrace of the scripture, the gentle temple of his solitary childhood, his old friends. The boy has not read in years, and his eyes are hungry. In the dusk light, he can just barely make out the slopes and the ridges of the letters, an unfamiliar script. But there, at the top of the page, under the last light of day, he can read. Night descends and consumes the text before the boy's eyes. There is no moon in the sky, the darkness of night is absolute, and the boy in the forest is exhausted. He falls asleep with the book still open in his lap. A boy in a crowd, antennae and fuzzy wings, we are like moths. Into the night sky, in the fear of the same darkness, the boy finds his light. The boy who leaves the crowd, he follows his consciousness. There, the glowing book. There you are, my boy. The book soaks up the shadows. Yes, read the words, yes. Boom, the book is shut. The book becomes the acorns, the leaves, and water. Inhaling the moth, they disappear into earth. It was never there. The boy in the forest wakes up as the morning light lands across his eyes. The dream buzzes like a swarm of mosquitoes in his ears. His mouth tastes like silt. He blinks away his dreams and looks down at the book in his lap. The open pages look the boy in the eyes. The book dares him to read. He can't resist. He begins to read.
The Life of Turtle, according to Ayodega. With the tip of her finger, a small curious girl named Honeybun created the world. The swirls and the grains of her fingerprint shaped the flow of the river. The waters of the river slid down and around her finger and gathered, swelling into the water drop. Hanging from Honeybun's finger, the water drop became pregnant with life. Suspended above the flow, the water drop and the river had their first child, the forest, all who reside within. The forest quickly grew up, spreading across their parents' creation. The water drop had 3 more children, the storm, the seers, and the waxwoman. Each child traveled across their parents' creation, finding the corners of the world to call their own. The river brought more water to the water drop, and the world expanded. Life flourished. One day, the voice of Honeybun boomed from above and shook the water drop. Wah! The river and the water drop trembled with fear. If we fall off of her finger, then we will all be destroyed. The forest continued to grow. The forest did not understand their fear because it could not imagine the creative and destructive powers of Honeybun. The storm became a nomad and fled to another world. The seers escaped into the night sky and became the stars. The waxwoman cowered and hid in the corner of the world, in the elbow of the river. The river and the water drop turned to one another and crafted their plan to save themselves from destruction. The river went to the waxwoman and comforted them. In return, the river asked for a spool of thread, a small basket, and a set of ceramic hands and feet. The water drop went to the forest and watered the trees. In return, the water drop asked for a bundle of sticks and a clever spider. The river and the water drop gathered the sticks, the thread, the small basket, the hands, and the feet, and began to build a marionette puppet for the clever spider to control. To finish building their puppet, the river and the water drop needed to find a talking head for their creation. The river sculpted a head vessel from the muddy banks. Meanwhile, the water drop looked out and beyond into distant worlds. Under the night eyes of the seers, the water drop reached out and plucked a special voice from the mouth of a sleeping child. The water drop filled the head with the freshly plucked voice and secured it to the body of the puppet. The river and the water drop spoke to the clever spider. The creator of our world seeks to destroy it and all of us who live here, and we need your help. I'm small and weak. What help could I provide? The spider replied. We have built a speaking puppet for you to control. With it, you will be able to distract the creator, the small, curious girl named Honeybun, the river replied. And while you distract Honeybun, you will weave a great web around her, holding her in place, said the water drop. Let me make sure I understand, said the spider. You are asking me, a spider, to mislead and imprison our creator, a small, curious girl, in order to save our world? Yes, replied the river and the water drop. In return, I ask for one thing, said the spider. I want you to adopt me as one of your children. The river and the water drop turned to one another, and then turned to the clever spider. Once Honeybun is trapped in your web, we will adopt you as one of our children. Deal, said the spider. With a small boat, the river shepherded the puppet and the spider out of the water drop and up and around Honeybun's finger. The spider gathered the puppet's strings and climbed into the small basket, which had become the puppet's body. The spider raised the puppet to its feet and stepped out of the boat and into Honeybun's world. When Honeybun saw the puppet, she giggled at the funny way he walked. With a lopsided grin, the puppet walked jerkily forwards and then in a circle around the small, curious girl. Honeybun laughed, but quickly became bored and interested in the small booger-like droplet at the end of her finger. Inside of the puppet, the spider pulled some strings, and the puppet began to dance. Honeybun laughed at the dancing, but heard a bird call in the distance and looked away. The spider pulled a few more strings, and the puppet opened its mouth and began to sing while dancing and circling the small, curious girl. A hymn for Honeybun. Trees grow tall until they fall, until they fall, until they fall. Falling leaves, catch them all, catch them all, catch them all. A little closer, a world so small, world so small, world so small. Mossy rocks, make weak walls, make weak wall, make weak wall. Will you be my best friend? I'll be your doll, I'll be your doll, I'll be your doll. Honeybun could not look away from the singing and dancing puppet. Inside of the puppet, the spider used all 8 of its legs, pulling strings and weaving his web. The puppet danced and circled and sang closer and closer to the small, curious girl who could not look away. The spider became dizzy inside of the spinning puppet, but he kept pulling strings and weaving his web. Honeybun was enchanted and did not realize that she had been trapped until the puppet stopped dancing and singing. The small, curious girl's hands were double bound in silk. The pointer finger of her right hand extended into the center of the web. On the tip of her finger, their water drop, pulled by gravity, hung suspended above the abyss and trapped the creator, a small, curious girl named Honeybun. As the web came to a rest, the spider and the puppet took a deep breath and stretched its 8 legs. The spider climbed out of the puppet, leaving it discarded on the earth next to Honeybun's legs. The spider crawled towards the center of its web. The spider could see the water drop in the river on the girl's finger, and from far away they seemed small. They seemed powerless. The spider came to them and showed them what it had done. The water drop in the river celebrated, and a new era began. When the party ended, the spider found the water drop in the river and reminded them of the deal. They were to adopt the spider as their son. And so, they did. The spider returned to the forest, his new brother. Now we are equals, the spider reasoned. But the forest was not interested in being equals. The forest thought themselves to be the trees, and everything resided within, including spiders. And so the forest ignored the spider. Ah, so you want to play that game? The spider reasoned. Then I'll give you something you can't ignore. The spider traveled across the forest and taught the creatures of the forest how to farm. The spider descended from above, from heaven, inspiring religion, theocracy, social policy. The spider taught the toads hierarchy, sold slavery to the salamander city-states, crowned the queens of ant militias. Rabbits rushed to industry, cockroaches shoveled coal, beavers basked in the booming business of the construction firm. The spider saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. The forest descended into industrialized chaos. Corporations carved up the forest with borders and boundaries. The population boomed on the pavement and asphalt. The tributaries of the river were dammed to control the water flow. Mass burning of trees, coal, and oil powered the hungry beast. Plume after plume of smoke and gas. The seasons stuttered and became furious, extreme. Arctic winters froze the land. Hellish summers released unstoppable wildfires. The spider grinned at the success of his plan, and now the forest would know who was in charge. The forest lost consciousness as the ecosystems quickly collapsed. Civilizations surged. The spider took advantage of the vulnerability, establishing himself as god of the forest even as it decayed. The water drop in the river felt the painful effects. They could not ignore the destruction of the forest and the idolatry of the spider. And so the water drop in the river abandoned the spider, declaring him an enemy bound for exile. The spider was no longer their child. The water drop in the river were not yet done. The spider was still a threat. The river and the water drop turned to one another and crafted their plan to save themselves and the forest from destruction. But they underestimated the spider, whose great web caught word of their plan for revenge. Ah, so you want to play that game, the spider reasoned. Then I suppose it's about time that I play to win. The spider sought the forest its heart, which still beat beneath the earth even while the forest remained unconscious. As God, the spider persuaded the animal corporations to dig deep wells in search of oil and gas and a magical fuel that would never run out. The spider monitored the mines and the quarries and the oil rigs as the corporations tore up the surface of the forest. Soon enough, the heart of the forest lay exposed to the polluted air, and the spider quickly bound it in silk and carried it away. But the river and the water drop hatched their plan before the spider could escape. They sent a flock of bluebirds, wrens, and sparrows after the spider. The spider fled, but knew he was losing ground. The forest's heart was too heavy to carry while running, and so the spider cast the heart aside. The heart of the forest landed out of sight, rolled down a hill, sunk into a deep algae-covered pond of wastewater. The spider retreated, cowering away from the birds, hiding in the farthest corner of the water drop, exiled. On the tip of Honeybun's finger, inside of the water drop, the forest was in ruins. The forest's chest had been cracked open, its heart stolen, its trees cut, the waters contaminated. The river and the water drop tried to heal their child, the forest, with seeds and magic, but they failed. Even in the spider's absence, the great web continued its work, binding Honeybun and constraining the minds of the forest. The river and the water drop sought help from the governments, corporations, cultures, and societies of the rabbits and the frogs and the beavers and all the people of the forest. But the people could not hear the river and the water drop. They could only hear the voice of prophet. The river and the water drop sought the help of their other children. The wax women feared the forest and did not want to help. The seers in the night sky looked at the destruction and accepted it as reality. They could do nothing to help. The storm came home and the water drop and raged at the evil unleashed upon her brother. The storm became inconsolable as she flooded the water drop with lightning and raindrops the size of whales. Her sorrow flooded the land. The lightning sparked a wildfire, and the loose soil tumbled away in a landslide. After the storm, the corporations bought the ruined properties and devised new ways to make money from the funerary industry. Wrapped in silk, the heart of the forest continued to beat at the bottom of a deep flooded algae-coated pond of water waste. A minnow felt the rhythms of the beating heart and became curious. The minnow nipped at the silk until the green glow of the heart shined through in the deep water. The minnow swam into the heart through the hole in the silk. The green heart glowed a few shades brighter. The rhythm of the heart's beating was a life force. It defined time at the bottom of the pond. Nearly 1 million heartbeats later, the heart began to grow even brighter as the silk swelled. 2 fins burst from beneath the silk, and then a tail and 2 glowing eyes. The green fish looked up and swam towards the pond's surface. Silk sank in the water as strands clung to the fish's scales, trailing like the tendrils of a jellyfish. The green fish quickly ascended through the waterways towards the pond's surface. The fish approached the boundary of air and water where moonlight refracted and bent. The toad, named Iodaga, sat at the pond's edge, looking at the fireflies and watching the full moon reflect off the pond. Iodaga watched as a few strings of silk floated to the surface, followed by bubbles and a few small waves. The small waves parted as a round form emerged. The form slowly rose from the water waste. Iodaga did not know what he was looking at. The form was slimy and covered in green tendrils. The form kept growing out of the surface of the pond. Iodaga's chest swelled, sung as the pond birthed a creature covered in green tendrils. Iodaga's eyes opened to the truth. The creature stopped growing at around 6 feet tall. The creature stood perfectly still on the surface of the pond, which looked like glass. The green tendrils slowly began to sway and spin under the moonlight. Iodaga sang an old toad song as the creature danced. Iodaga knew the truth. The creature dancing in front of him was a prophecy, a promise of renewal and rebirth. Turtle! Turtles dancing quickly attracted the attention of the people of the forest. Turtle spun in circles and turned the great web into thread which clung to his green tendrils as he danced. The tendrils swelled as they licked up the water from the storm's flood. The governments and the corporations feared Turtle and the dance, so they contracted militaries with guns and missiles who fired their weapons at Turtle. Turtle danced in front of the guns and the bullets, slid off of the tendrils, and they swept away the past. Desperation seized control of the spider's shrinking governments and failing corporations as Turtle danced away their property and profit. The water drop and the river rejoiced as the governments and corporations collapsed. But Turtle continued dancing, even after he had soaked up the flood and gathered all of the spider silk in the forest. The water drop and the river watched as Turtle danced closer towards the spider web that restrained Honeybun. The green tendrils of silk and algae threw droplets of water in every direction as they reached for the web. The river and the water drop trembled with fear. If Turtle destroys the web, then Honeybun will be freed, and we will all be destroyed. The river and the water drop became desperate. The water drop held still, frozen with fear. The river diverted, rushing at Turtle, hoping to drown him. But the river's water soaked with Turtle's fibers, and he swelled in size. The frog Iodaga watched Turtle grow bigger and bigger and felt a warning. Run. Iodaga warned the people. We must flee or we will surely perish. So the people fled in hordes of birds and beetles and beavers. The people built rafts and fled the water drop and the river, which was quickly disappearing as Turtle grew. Aodega let the people out of the water drop, off the edge of the world. Behind him, Turtle grew even larger as he danced, pushing at the inner walls of the water drop. Surface tension! Aodega released a loud, bellowing croak, and the people cried out in fear. Aodega calmed the people and bade them to turn away from the water drop and the river and their failed corporations and crooked corporations. Aodega led the people as they recited the 14 names of Turtle. Beginner, Redeemer, Restorer, Remover, Unnamer, Dark Light, Translator, Silence, Suffering, Promise, Ender, Turtle! Turtle grew to be larger than the forest. Turtle grew to be larger than the river. Turtle grew to be larger than the water drop. Turtle spun and sent droplets flying in every direction. Turtle spun and danced on the finger of the young, curious girl named Honeybun. Turtle spun and collected the silk of the spider web. Turtle danced until Honeybun's hands were no longer double bound. Turtle danced as Honeybun released a sound that was happy and sad at the same time. Turtle danced as Honeybun stuck her finger underwater to wash away all that had been left behind. The waves absorbed the water drop and the river and their children. Turtle shed the silk and the green tendrils. A minnow emerged from the remnants of Turtle's chest. The minnow swam away. Turtle's corpse floated and sank, buried beneath the waters of the ocean.
The cabin. The boy in the forest wakes up to the screeches of a blue jay just a few branches above his head. The blue jay screeches a warning, but the boy cannot hear it over the cramp in his stomach. Yesterday, after he had finished reading Iodega, the boy in the forest had spent the day wandering, his mind consumed by the story, by the book. How did the words in the Bible change? Is Turtle from the old woman's story? Who wrote this? What's going on? The fish in the book, and the river and the water drop and the turtle and Honeybun. What does that even mean? What does any of this have to do with me? I'm so confused. I'm so lost. Where am I supposed to go? Maybe if I could just find the wagon, I could follow it. Before he knew it, night had come again, a dreamless sleep. And now, here he is, cold and thirsty and very hungry in the morning air. It's been 48 hours since his last meal, his final breakfast in the village, right before the old women had betrayed him. The morning hours ache under the boy's feet as he moves forwards. The blue jay flies ahead of the boy, occasionally screeching. The boy's fingers drift across the closed pages of the book. His mind sifts through Iodega. The boy in the forest considers reopening the book and reading another section, but his hunger stops him short. He needs food first. He read slowly. It had taken him far too long to read Iodega. He'll starve to death if he spends any more of his time reading. Eventually, the boy in the forest notices a brightening in the trees ahead of him. He follows the light, and the blue jay rushes ahead, screeching away. Then he sees it, a cabin. The small cabin sits in the center of a small clearing where saplings had already reclaimed the thin boundary between forest and tall grass. The cabin seems to be built of Lincoln logs, like the ones he had played with back in the orphanage. He had loved playing with them until the other children had knocked over his buildings and stolen the logs from him. The memory shakes the boy like a leaf. The cabin has a small chimney, a thin porch, and a tiny door. The boy's stomach guides him towards the structure in hopes of something edible. As he emerges from the woodland edge and into the clearing, the blue jay ceases its screeching and flies away. The bugs hush, and the air becomes silent and still. The wood grain of the front door swirls and spirals under the porch's shade. The boy in the forest knocks twice on the door, and the scent of cedar pulses off of the door with each touch. The knock hardly resonates, the door is thick, and when the boy inspects his knuckle, it feels sticky, like sap. He knocks once more and waits. No response. The boy's stomach decides for him. He reaches out to the door knob and pulls. With some effort, the door opens and releases an exhale of shadow and wood dust. The inside of the cabin aches in a hollow way, absent like tooth decay. The light filters through the doorway, tickling dust bunnies falling on loose rags in vague angled shapes. The boy in the forest looks into the room, his stomach sniffing for food. The boy in the forest steps into the swirling pools of dust. The room smells stale and long-abandoned, but his hunger pushes onwards. He lifts a cloth tarp, his breath clogged by the particles sent up into the air, revealing a burlap bag. His stomach leaps ahead, and his hand pulls open the bag, the contents obscured by a deep shadow. The bag is full and heavy, so the boy drags it into the light. A face stares back up at him. He takes in the blank gaze of the eyes. The head is small and angular with sharp features, a strange hat with 2 points, and dots on the cheeks and nose. In the light, the browns and greens of the head reflect the light with a glossy shimmer. The boy empties the bag. Hands and arms and legs and feet follow the head onto the floor in a pile of string and wooden rods. A puppet. Collapsed on the floor and bent at odd angles, the puppet remains entirely still, its head angled toward the open door. The forest light glances off of the forever open eyes. The boy in the forest struggles to gather his thoughts, but his stomach overrides his interest. He turns away from the puppet, back towards the other hidden shapes inside the small cabin. Each removed tarp releases plumes of dust and scatters cobwebs and small spiders, revealing nothing more than piles of dry timber in various states of decay. The boy digs through the piles, hoping for something, anything, but the old wood holds no secrets. The boy in the forest fights back a sneeze, inhaling a gulp of dust that sends him into a coughing fit. He presses his palms into his eyes as he gathers his breath. With his eyes covered, the small cabin feels even smaller, as if the ceiling and the floor of the walls were slowly constricting and shrinking. A faint tap cracks the silence of the dusty cabin, and the boy quickly turns around, opening his eyes, hoping to spot a mouse or a rat that he can maybe catch and eat. The noise evaporates, and he spots nothing. The dust motes in the air float gently back and forth in and out of the door, quiet breathing. Goosebumps rise on the back of the boy's neck and stumble down his arms. The boy in the forest is overwhelmed by the need to flee. He stumbles towards the doorway as the thick door begins to close. He squeezes out through the open crack of air, the door nearly crushing his right arm. The boy in the forest trips off his way off the porch, staggering towards the forest edge, but he catches himself. Ahead of him, the light trickles through the dense branches, lighting up a web of crisscross strings bending and pulling, lifting and shaking. Framed in the center of the movement, 2 pin-drop eyes look out from a strange, glossy head wearing a 2-pointed hat. Like a toddler struggling to stand, the puppet's legs buck and its arms stretch wide, sending pops and snaps crackling in the wind. The boy in the forest stares at the puppet, and the puppet stares back at the boy. Neither says a word. In the light, the boy takes in the glossy contours of the puppet's immobile face, a frozen, lopsided grin pinned beneath a wide nose. The puppet appears to observe the boy. Beneath the puppet's head, the boy can see the puppet's fist-sized body, orange and green and brown twists and loops. The puppet's body is a woven basket. The boy's curiosity burns, but his hunger breaks the silent stalemate. He needs to eat. Carefully, he edges his way towards the forest edge, a safe distance from the puppet. But before he gets far, the puppet begins to dance frantically. It extends its hand toward the boy and gestures with a wave. Come closer. The wind dies, and the forest holds its breath. The boy considers the puppet, the clearing, the cabin, the book in his bag, the bright sun, the silence. What more is there to lose? He steps toward the silent puppet, and the strings lift and fall, the suspended hand beckoning him. Yes, yes, just a little closer, one more step. The boy in the forest stops an arm's length away from the puppet. The puppet nods, and the strings slide and drop as the extended right hand retracts and orients itself in front of the puppet's head, blocking the face from view. The fingers flex, and the right hand grasps the head and lifts, exposing a small hole in the top of the basket body. The strings creak as the left arm turns, the hand rotating, reaching into the hole. The left hand barely fits, disappearing inside of the puppet's body. Its wooden arm extends painfully over the lip of the basket. The boy remains frozen in place. The left hand rummages about inside of the basket, operating off of touch, and then it freezes. The fingers close around something, holding it firmly in a fist. The strings retract and the arm withdraws, touching at the hand inside of the basket. The rim of the basket bulges, but the hand does not emerge. The strings relax and contract again, pulling, but the closed hand is stuck. A breeze rustles the trees, and the puppet freezes, appearing to assess the situation. The moment passes, and the puppet releases the fist inside its chest. The strings retracting an empty left hand from the hole, the right hand returns the head over the basket's rim. The puppet shifts towards the boy before holding up a palm. Hold on another moment. The boy in the forest blinks, standing still, curious. Another breeze passes through the trees overhead, and the strings slide and pull, leading the legs forward and backward in a swinging motion. The puppet builds momentum before flinging the legs up into the air, a reversal. The feet become tangled in the branches above, and the puppet's body hangs upside down, its arms limp and dangling. The basket's open hole exposed as the head slides across a string, dragged by gravity towards the earth. The puppet's body convulses, shaking as the tangled strings pull and push. The wind blows, and a snap scatters the sound of colliding sticks. A string flutters away in the wind as the puppet's left arm falls from the web. The hand breaks into pieces against the earth below. The puppet shakes and strings snap, but gravity feels no remorse. Nothing falls out of the hole. The remaining right arm slowly lifts and beckons the boy. Come. The boy in the forest takes a shaky step forward. He extends his hand towards the upside-down basket. The strings tug, and the rim angles itself towards the boy's fingers. The boy touches the basket, feeling the bumps of each individual leaf, something made by hand. The style reminds him of the baskets that the old woman with sunken eyes once made. His heart skips a beat. He runs his fingers along the surface of the hole. The tight, knotted rim caves inwards, constricting, big enough for only 2 of the boy's fingers to enter at once. The boy in the forest glances at the puppet's upside-down head, dangling above the ground, and it seems to look back at him approvingly, with its clown nose and lopsided grin. The boy presses his middle and pointer finger into the basket's opening. He wiggles his fingers around, searching for something inside. Inside, the boy's fingers grasp at loose strings, floundering in the strangely warm air that fills the basket. He feels about for a few moments, but he finds nothing. His stomach burns. The boy in the forest tries to pull his fingers out of the rim, constricts a finger trap holding them in place. The puppet's remaining arm lifts and rests its hand on the boy's arm. Relax, it's okay. Look a little harder. The boy's heart pounds in his chest, but he closes his eyes and untenses his fingers. He tries to see with his fingertips, methodically tapping and tracing, rubbing the surface of the inside round and round. He follows the weave. He imagines the endless circling of the basket's maker, and then he feels it, wet, a little warm, squishy, and round. It's not small. The boy does not know how he missed it before, but there it is, a fleshy something. With his 2 fingers, the boy in the forest attempts to pinch the side of the wet, squishy, round thing, but he struggles to grasp it. With his other hand, the boy grasps the basket and lifts it, pulling taut at the strings knotted in the branches. He shakes the basket, using his engaged fingers to angle the fleshy thing above the basket's opening. Slowly, he retracts his fingers, opening his palm beneath the hole. One firm shake, and the fleshy thing plops into his hand. He lets go of the strung-up basket and looks at the round pink bulb in his hand. Smaller than a golf ball, the thing appears to be some kind of fruit, skinned and pitted. The boy's stomach barks, and the bulb disappears into the boy's mouth before he can think. Sweet with a sour aftertaste, the wet bulb skips the teeth and slides down the boy's dry throat, marking the walls like a snail. The stomach gapes wide as the bulb splashes inside the boy's chest. Shivers radiate from the boy's stomach like the sun. The boy closes his eyes as his top lip shakes and lifts, hovering above his bottom lip. His jaw opens slightly, and his tongue adjusts in the back of his mouth, allowing for air to travel freely. The boy in the forest gathers a thin string of breath, tracing the path of the pink bulb, reaching into his belly, tugging. He exhales the thread like a dart. The air rises and leaps off of the boy's bottom lip, dancing, sweet as a summer bird. The bright air rides the warm breeze and perches on the boy's ear, a handmade birdhouse. The note hops and skips, bumbling and scrambling, gathering herself as she curves, an adjustment of the tongue, subtle and vital, precise. The whistle travels the length of the breeze, and the finches in the trees warble in a wave, like a sweet joke passed from friend to friend, a gift and a shared story. The wave of sound flutters away, and the boy who whistles takes a deep breath, his stomach fast asleep, satisfied for a moment. He opens his eyes and looks ahead at the tangled, discarded remains of the puppet. The loose strings flutter in the breeze, barely clinging to the dangling head in the empty basket. The sunlight filters through the tree line, and the boy who whistles looks back at the cabin, small and deflated. He watches the broken limbs and empty pin-drop eyes. The puppet is a corpse. The boy who whistles closes his eyes. He whistles a simple melody, an easy song of gratitude. That night, the boy sleeps easily. His dreams pulse with bright sound.
The hole. The boy who whistles notices it when he wakes up and nearly falls into it. A pit, the size of a well, abandoned. He looks inside and sees deep shadows and the faint silhouette of deer antlers. The antlers hold the night inside the hole. The boy avoids the hole and continues deeper into the woods. The cedars loom. The boy who whistles takes careful steps across the moss-packed floors as he continues onwards. The tall, aching cedars seem to stretch infinitely in either direction, wet and groaning in the morning wind. In the distance, a violent crack as a branch plummets from the canopy. The boy whistles as he walks, but still he aches with hunger and thirst. The sun charges across the sky and blinks into night. The boy returns his head to the mossy forest floor and sleeps. Thousands of tiny voices clamor over one another. He strains to listen, but the accumulation of voices becomes a dense fog, a buzz, a hum. The boy in the forest turns his head towards the sound and looks at the crowd of moss. Tall sphagnums push and lash at one another as his tears splash onto their wanting bodies. The pulsing only makes the tears fall harder, and still, even in this dark void, he squeezes his lips tight. His eyes stay wrenched open, leaking waterfalls of rain onto the moss rug, begging for him to pour himself out. A spider weaves a web across his cheeks, and his toes dig into the organic layer of the soil. The sphagnum moss soon dances across his body, and only his nose remains exposed to the surface. Beneath the moss, the boy in the forest rests with the cedar needles and chews on their scales. Finally, the hum quiets down. The boy who whistles wakes up with a tick hanging from the back of his neck. He struggles to his feet but nearly falls when he almost steps into the hole. The boy looks inside, and staring back at him are the antlers, slightly closer in the darkness. He frowns and his stomach pulses. The boy who whistles tries everything he can to keep his eyes trained on anything other than the hole. He turns his back, looks up at the swaying branches, and uses his hand to brush down the hairs that stand up on the back of his neck. It's not real, it's not real, it's not real. There is no hole, it's only a dream. Wake up, wake up, wake up. The heartbeat in his belly won't stop, and no matter how far he walks, he can't get away from the hole. He knows it is still just behind him, that the hole will catch him if he falls backwards. It will swallow him whole. As he walks, the boy who whistles can hear the sound of rustling leaves sucked off of the forest floor, fluttering down into the chasm. The boy tries whistling to ease his anxiety, but the sound comes out crooked. It's all wrong. The thought of the hole behind him makes him increase his pace until he's jogging, and then running. He's running, and he knows the hole is still behind him, easily keeping pace. As the sun peaks overhead, the soil below becomes rocky and dry under the boy's feet. He keeps running, even as the trees bend at odd angles. Each of the boy's steps kicks up a plume of dust that only makes his throat burn more. A hill rises ahead of him, and the hole gapes behind him. The boy fights to keep moving,
but his legs burn and his stomach groans and his mind frays. The day is entirely quiet. No birds chirping and no wind slipping through the branches. No critters rustle in the dead leaves and no clouds float through the desaturated sky. The boy coughs but doesn't open his mouth, and it shoots fire through his chest. His eyes throb, but there are no more tears left to cry, and no more water to quench his unending thirst. This must be the end. The dry twigs snap under his feet, and the dusty soil kicks up under the boy's shuffling feet. He looks up towards the distant canopy of swaying pitch pines and runs his fingers along the charred trunks, charcoal staining his emaciated fingers. Again, he tries to ease his anxiety, but that sweet sound, his whistle. With that sweet sound, his whistle. But his mouth is too dry and no sound escapes his lips. The boy tries to whistle again, pushing air out of his parched throat and barren mouth. The air stumbles on the sandpaper, broken and empty. The boy clenches his jaw, grinds his teeth. He tries again and again, forcing the air out of his lungs through the desert of his throat. In a fit of sorrow, he pulls the book out of his bag and throws it onto the ground, where it lands in a bed of dust and needles. The faded green seems to seep into the gray-brown dust of the soil as another burning cough shakes the boy's body. He falls to the ground in front of the book and presses his forehead into the dry dirt. Please, please, please. I don't know what to do. I'm so confused. I'm lost. The breeze grows into a wind. The boy lifts his head to watch the pages of the book flutter until they lay flat. New words bloom on the open pages, dark and fresh and wet.
The tree's burden. A small seed floated on the wind and landed on the top of a lone hill in the middle of the forest on a drifting island. The hill had formed upon the grave of a child who had died many years earlier. As the seed sprouted and grew new roots, the people of the forest gathered to celebrate the new life. It had been many years since a celebration had happened in the forest on the island. It was a good celebration, full of generosity and forgiveness. The birds and the rodents and the frogs and the bears and all of the people of the forest sang together as they celebrated the new life on the hill.
The Hill Hymn. On this hill, death births life, but death births life. And we will protect this life, All things end, let go of life, A cycle man, turtle life.
As the sprout became a sapling, an unusual burl formed upon the trunk. The people worried the burl could be a sign of illness, but the sapling continued to grow as the burl grew too. On the 10th anniversary of the seed's sprouting, the burl began to move, and a sound like laughter came from the tree. The people felt fear, but the burl continued to move, morphing and splitting. The burl took the form of a face with 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth, and the tree said, "I am the tree of knowledge. I've come to the forest to restore peace." The people were afraid, but eventually a small mouse raised its voice and asked, "How will you restore peace to the forest?" The tree of knowledge replied, "Although I may be a young tree, I have inherited the wisdom of the earth. I will restore peace to the forest with the truth." The people of the forest spoke excitedly amongst themselves, and then they began to ask the tree of knowledge questions. They asked the tree about the world, the weather, and the western horizon. They asked the tree about interpersonal conflicts, political strife, and natural disasters. They asked the tree about the forest, its history, its curse, and its heart. For many years, the tree of knowledge answered all of their questions, and with each answer, the tree brought the forest and its people one step closer to peace. A curious beaver came to the tree of knowledge.
I am a destroyer and a builder. With my teeth, I cut down trees that look just like you, and I use them to build dams. My mother, and my mother's mother, and my mother's mother's mother were destroyers and builders just like me. As far back as the river of time flows, we have created dams. Our dams clog the flow of the river and create vast wetlands. We thrive in our wetlands. We become one with our dams, one with the wetlands, one with our neighbors. So, great tree of knowledge, I come with 3 questions. Does the beaver create the wetland, or does the wetland create the beaver? If we are all one, then who is the creator, and who is the created? And how do the trees feel about their role in all this?
The Tree of Knowledge wrestled with the 3 questions. The Tree of Knowledge considered how his answer might bring the forest closer to peace. The Tree of Knowledge lowered its roots deep into the hill, reaching out for the earth's wisdom. The Tree of Knowledge consulted the decaying organic matter and the sand and clay and finally the skeleton of the boy buried beneath the hill. The beaver tapped its tail impatiently as the Tree of Knowledge sunk deep into contemplation. The sun began to set and the beaver made itself comfortable next to the tree. The curious beaver was not leaving without an answer. The full moon rose over the hill. The night was very still. The curious beaver fell asleep. The Tree of Knowledge began to speak. A tree spends its life accumulating small choices. One cell after another, branching here and rooting there, leaf by leaf. A mighty oak is a quadrillion decisions living and breathing. The beaver comes and makes a choice. The beaver cuts down the tree. It accumulates the logs that store the stories of the tree's decisions. The beaver gathers these log books. The stories accumulate and the choices made grow exponentially. Like the stars in the universe, the choices explode across the cosmos, and the wetlands overflow with the choices of its community. The beaver and the tree and the river collaborate in their creativity, each contributing to the cycle. The Tree of Knowledge continued. We live in an endless chain of creators and creations. We crave credit. Who made this? Who did that? I did this. Oh, he did that. But creation will never be so simple. Creation is unexpected and nonlinear. Did my mother tree create me? Or was I created by the wind that carried my seed? Maybe I am created by this hill. Its nutrients and wisdom has given me this life. In cutting and moving and accumulating, did the beaver create the dam? Or by growing and preparing for the afterlife, did the tree create the dam? Does the answer affect the outcome? Together, in every breath and decision, we are creators creating, created by each moment in and around us. The Tree of Knowledge concluded, I've done my best to answer your questions, curious beaver. I do not speak for all trees. I can only speak for myself. I know that my ability to speak, that which differentiates me from other trees, sentences me to a short life. When I am cut down, some parts of my body will rot and decay, but much of my body will be turned into objects. Perhaps I will become a log in a dam, or maybe my wood will be used to build a wagon or a cabin. Possibly my corpse will be pulped, turned into sheets of paper, bound in a book. In each afterlife, I will lose my autonomy, but never my sentience. My body will be used over and over, and it pains me that my corpse will be used to harm others. I am sorry that I will lose control. I will no longer be the creator nor the created. I will be a zombie raised from the dead. The morning sun ended the night and shone upon the barren top of the hill. The Tree of Knowledge was gone. The beaver was gone too. The faintest traces of the tree's stump remained where it had been cleaved from the earth. The people of the forest gathered to mourn, but they all held suspicions in their hearts. Accusations began to be thrown. Many blamed the curious beaver, but the beaver was still missing. Others noted how cleanly the tree had been felled. No beaver teeth could do that. The people of the forest pointed fingers. He did it. No, you did it. The forest erupted into chaos as blame drove the people apart. The curious beaver was never seen again in the forest, and the body of the Tree of Knowledge was never found.
The Fall. Seated on the dusty earth, the boy reads the last words of burden. His heart beats in a steady rhythm and his ears ring. I don't understand. I don't care about a stupid tree. What do you want me to do? Why am I even bothering with this anymore? Unsteadily, the boy rises to his feet, leaving the book on the ground. His blood rushes to his head and his vision grows faint. He sinks back to the ground next to the book. I can't escape you, can I? Please, just let me go. The boy tries standing again, but he does not have the strength. His stomach burns like coal. His toes hurt like bruises. His legs are shrunken. His skin clings to the bones of his skull. Fine. I'll just lay down here. The boy spends the night shivering. His eye sockets ache, and dried up tears slip down his cheeks and flutter onto the leaf litter beneath his head. Before the sun had set, the boy had closed the book and held it close. Now the book sit heavy on his chest, cradled his ribs, restrained tight skin, laid taut over a vacant stomach. The tongue in the boy's mouth hangs like a rubber as it scrapes against the molars, digging for the shells of acorns buried between his teeth. The midnight chirping of a frog fills the night in the boy's ears. The sound seems to penetrate the ground and the branches of the trees, echoing and bouncing. The croaks shimmer under the full moon's light, rippling like waves in the air. The boy falls asleep with his eyes open. The shape of the thing was wicked and wide, and the stillness held it open. 2 hands, jaw clamped, expanded. Stretched, opening and ending. There's only the entrance, and then there is just the thing. The whole breathed the cooling of air of night, and the seers looked down its great throat. The whole did not blink, nor did it falter. It only laid still, an option. The whole was always an option. The whole will always be an option. Why antlers? Why 2 wide branches born of a body? And why their shape, their sloping curve, their sharp anger pierced my chest? The boom of the flailing and the never-ending collision, the spark of life flares upon impact. Bang. There, right there, I can smell the smoke, and so the whole bellows and belches, the trace of a great fire at the bottom of the pit. The heat of earth churns and presses against the velvet night of the whole. Boy, can't you hear it? Smell it? Taste it? A flickering candle? Turn around. Turn around. I said turn around. Turn around. Turn around. Turn around. Turn around. The boy in the forest can no longer see ahead of him. His eyes cloud over. There is no more going forward. The boy has reached the end of the road. His future extends no further. There is only here and now, and of course, the world behind him, the whole behind him. And so, with nowhere left to go, he gives up. The boy turns around. He turned toward the past. It had followed him patiently and obediently, like a well-trained dog. The boy, who turned around, felt his vision clear as he looked into the hole, felt like he was looking in a mirror, the emptiness, the absence, and the hunger. The boy saw it all swallowed with a dry gulp and down the hole.
What is Zoe?
His eyes fell into the void and tumbled and bounced off the dry walls until they landed, pierced by horns, shadowed and velvet. The boy who turned around saw himself in the silence of the antlers and their attempts at composure. The trees groaned and leaned and whispered behind the boy. The boy who turned around stood frozen, facing backwards, listening to their words, his eyes cast into the darkness. What will he do now? There's nowhere left for him to go. He is lost. He will lose. Loss. The way ahead had been smudged away, and the present is fading away quickly. Will he linger and fade? Will he be smudged from this world, unknown, forgotten by all people? Or did he fall in, jump in, lean in, into the ground, swept out from under him? We are sorry we can not help you, human boy, but we will not forget you. The forest remembers. Like a branch in the winter winds, violet shivers overtook the boy's body. His bones clacked and his teeth ached. He raised his arms and wrapped them around himself to conserve warmth, but there was no more warmth left. His bony arms only brought the cold closer to his heart, towards the end of now. As the world blurred at the edges, the boy who turned around remembered his short life. He drifted further towards the hole. He remembered the old woman and the nuns. He thought of teeth. Well, he thought of being spoken to, of the nuns extracting his response like baby teeth, how much they wanted him to speak. They cared about what he had to say. They needed him to talk. They begged him to talk. The old woman had not bothered. They had never forced him to speak. They accepted his silence and planted seeds in the absence. He remembered the hours of work he spent cleaning and scrubbing and repairing the orphanage, the endless time spent with his back hunched, weaving, spinning, bending over the stone, gathering water, capturing dreams. He thought about moving water and willful fish that swallow men whole. He thought of Jonah, but found he could no longer remember what happened to the man after he got swallowed by the fish. Job and perpetual suffering. The boy who turned around no longer believed in any God, much less the God. God had abandoned him to die. The boy thought of that one night when he was very young, when he had woken up from the nightmare. A hand entered his mouth and dug into his throat, reaching for something. The boy had woken up gasping and choking, and the other children had shoved him out of the bed for making noise. He sat on the shaking floor. The feeling of the hand in his throat replayed over and over and over in his head. He found the courage to rise up to his feet, to tiptoe out of the room, to find somewhere warm in the orphanage where he could fall back asleep. The hallway was midnight dark, so the boy felt his way across the hall, traversing toward the faint light that hung from the frame of a closed door. The sound of muffled laughter emanated from the light and drew the boy in close. He stuck his eye against the frame of the door, and light dazzled his visions. The nuns were gathered in a semicircle around a television. The black and white shapes whirled and moved, and formed into the shapes of men and women. They clasped hands and danced big movements in gray costumes. The boy stood at the door, peering through the dark, through the crack, lost in the swirling images. Behind him, the dark hallway grew and stretched and bent down into the earth. Hours later, when he looked away from the light in the crack, the boy who turned around found himself looking down the deep pit of the hallway, a hole in the ground, the only direction left to go. The door in front of him remained closed. It's just a long hallway, somewhere to sleep, no more nightmares. The boy who turned around leaned forward until the soles of his feet left the solid earth. The wind took a deep breath, a gentle nudge, and the weight of the boy's head pulled him into the air, down into the hole. He fell towards the antlers, hurtled fast, plummeting, dropped like a rock from a bridge, or water falling from a cloud. The boy becomes rain, falling quick, drop.
The dark. In the last flashes of light as he fell, the boy in the hole watched the antlers grow and morph into the great roots of the forest, pushing in and out of the walls of the hole. The boy did not feel fear. Instead, the rushing air filled his chest with lightness, even as the light itself quickly retreated, left behind like a pinprick far above the boy in the hole. Like a penny tossed into a well, the boy in the hole fell, suspended in the moment after release and before impact, the lacuna of gravity and its consequences. The boy in the hole began to whistle as he fell, and the sound trailed the boy like a comet's tail, bouncing off of the black walls, gyring like dust motes caught in a beam of light, quickly retreating. In near total darkness, approaching terminal velocity, the boy in the hole extended his arms and flapped them like a bird as he whistled, and for a moment he became a blue jay. In the darkness of the hole, the blue jay boy dodged and weaved through the roots of the forest until the boy in the hole found the boy in the forest sleeping against the trunk of a big tree, exhausted and hungry. From his perch, the blue jay boy sang until he saw the boy's face return from the dream world. Briefly, he looked into his own eyes before he took off, guiding himself towards the cabin in the clearing, towards the puppet in the gift. The hole stretched to infinity, and the bliss of falling filled the boy. The hole was the future and will be the past, a small blip. Everything ahead is, was, and will be darkness. Vision did not operate in this domain of timelessness. The world of falling bent and warped, and down became up. The boy in the hole flew into the skies of darkness, flapping his wings and crying out with whooping whistles. This world of sound and of air currents passed by, up and down and twisting. The boy in the hole became like the river, with the world streaming through his fingers. Time's detritus accumulated beneath his nails and in his hair as he fell. But like the river, which flowed for miles and miles, the going cannot last forever. Out of weariness, all rivers must, at a certain point, lose their identity. The river becomes its own delta. A major branch remains, but many break off from it in every direction, and some flow together again, into one another. Inevitably, the river and its many parts approaches the sea, which annihilates all rivers. What is still the river? What is already sea? Where is the boy? I can't see him. The darkness shook with a deep vibration as the boy in the hole collided with something wide and thin and sticky like a net. The suddenness of the collision in the pitch black stopped the boy's thinking, his feeling, and his breathing. The waves of the vibration swayed back and forth until total stillness settled. The boy in the hole gasped as he regained consciousness. Everything hurt. He could see nothing. He could feel every point of contact where his skin stuck to the thread. He could not move. He was stuck. He wanted to yell, but he had no voice. He tried to whistle, but the thirst and hunger had returned and stolen his gift. He tried to resist. He thrashed and shook against the sticky threads. He only became more stuck. He felt his bag weighed down by the book, hanging from his arm, dangling between threads, suspended below and above endless darkness. The boy in the hole stopped fighting. He became very still. He felt the vibrations of the sticky thread bounce away and back, approximating movement and distance and scale. In the absence of sound and light, there were only the waves of the vibrating threads stretching and boundless. The vibrations operated on rhythm and frequency, and the boy in the hole traced their movement. The vibrations became hypnotic and soothing, consistent. The shaking lulled him towards sleep, but kept him awake and aware, conscious and immobile. Bum bum, 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 bum bum. His heartbeat synchronized. His breath flowed in and out every 4 beats. From a long way off, the rhythm added a grace note, barely noticeable, but there. And then another, subtle and swift, a quiet extra beat. And then closer, 2 extra beats. The tempo swayed, accommodating the new notes. The rhythm sped up a little, and the boy's heart rate followed. His breathing picked up too as the additional beats accelerated towards a gallop. Bum bum ba 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 bum. The vibrations became deeper and wider, a higher frequency. His heart raced. The strings shook with the hastening of the beat, quickening. Something was approaching quickly. It's almost here. As quickly as it had arrived, the acceleration disappeared, leaving behind rhythmic ripples bouncing and distorting. The echoes settled and the vibrations relaxed. The boy in the hole felt a souring in his chest. Without his sight, smell, hearing, or touch, the boy in the hole could still sense the presence of something big and alive, and it was close. It stood above him and around him like a room or a cage. The sound hissed like steam and released a wind that smelled of old paper. The boy in the hole felt a sharp pressure on his arm as his bag was tugged away from him. He heard the sound of shuffling as the book was extracted from the bag. The bag echoed as it fluttered away, down into the abyss. You finally returned home to me. The voice sounded like how it smelled, papery and thin and old, ancient. And what's this? What kind of stray did you bring home? The voice crooned. Welcome to the end, my boy. How sweet of the book, my sweet turtle, to bring you home to me. Not one for words? What is your name, boy?
I don't know my name. I don't have a name. No one ever gave me one.
You don't have a name? Is that right?
Can you hear my thoughts? What are you? What do you want from me?
Ah, you're that type. Straight to the point. Don't you want to know my name?
How can you hear my thoughts? What's going on? Let me go.
You're in the dark now, boy. The barrier between the inside and the outside is dissolved. I can hear your thoughts crystal clear, and no, I will not let you go.
I don't understand.
It's not for you to understand. Well, do you want to know my name or not?
What is your name? What are you? What do you want from me?
Whoa, 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 whoa. One question at a time now. And what makes you think I want anything from you? I am the mighty of all mighties. I am a weaver of worlds and a giver of names. I am the right hand of the universe. I am a god, the god, father of turtle and ruler of all.
You're God? Like God? And turtle? The prophecy turtle?
Ah, so you know my child, Turtle. Did my little book Turtle tell you a little bit about himself? Books sure do have a mind of their own, don't they? Ah, I bet he told you all about how he, the almighty Turtle, cleansed the world, saved the day, ended the tyranny of the forest and the water drop in the river.
Yes, I read that part. The Bible told me about the water drop and the river, and turtle and a spider and its web of lies.
Bible? Oh God, no. This is no Bible. This is Turtle. And it seems like he's been quite a pesky little thing. Seems he has an oversharing problem. We'll have to fix that, won't we? Another rebinding would do this old hunk of paper some good anyways.
Wait, no, don't do anything to the book. I need it.
You need it? What makes you think you need this book? What does it make you feel special? Like you're some kind of chosen one? Listen here, boy. I sent Turtle out into the universe to lure children just like you here to me. Don't you get it? The book is a trap, and you walked right into it, jumped right into my web.
Your web? Are you a spider?
Now you're on to something. Maybe you're a little smarter than I gave you credit for. I am the spider. Yes, I am the spider. I am older than this world and older than the world before that. I am a maker, a spinner of stories. I am a connector. I weave networks of meaning. My webs are vast. I am God, and you are a grain of sand in a desert of infinite size. I am the beaming sun.
Then why bring kids here? What do you want? What are you going to do to me?
What am I going to do with you? Well, I'm certainly not going to eat you. I would never stoop so low as to eat something so starved and sick like you. I suppose I'll wrap you up and leave you here in stasis. No one will come looking for you. You are already forgotten above, and you will never be known below. You will be able to think and to feel, but you will have no agency of your body. You will be neither dead nor alive. You will be a single point on my web, a speck of dust in this universe of my design. I will experiment on your body. I will build a world upon your corpse. I will keep you here suspended. I'm going to make you immortal. Ah, and now you have nothing to say. Like I thought. You know, you're actually quite lucky. It's an honor, really. You should be thankful. So many spend their lives chasing immortality and they fail over and over. And here you are, and you stumbled right into it. You've hit the jackpot, really. A little gratitude wouldn't hurt you. You know, I do have a question for you. Did you read the end of the turtle? The end of your Bible?
What does it say at the end?
Ah, you want to know. You really want to know what happens in the end?
Yes, I want to know.
You know what? Okay, I'll stop playing around with you. I'll tell you what happens in the end. What will happen in the end. I'll read the last page to you.
How can you read in the dark?
Oh, just shut up already. You and your stupid questions. Just listen. The final book of Turtle. In the ending. The final page. The truth. Preached by Turtle and witnessed by his disciple Ayodega. Blessed are those that read this prophecy aloud. Blessed are those who hear the truth and take heart in it, because the time is near. There was a vision. The spider came down from above like rain, having the key to the hole, and holding in his hand a great chain. He seized Honeybun, that ancient demon, who is the devil, or Satan, and bound her for 1,000 years. He threw her into the hole and locked and sealed it over her, to keep her from deceiving the weak-minded, and to preserve the perfection of the water drop. Turtle revealed the river of the water of life, as clear as crystal, flowing from the spider's throne down the middle of the forest. On each side of the river stood the tree of knowledge, bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. No longer will there be any curse. The throne of the spider will be in the forest, and his servant Turtle will serve him. They will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads. The seers will come down from the sky and pledge their allegiance. There will be no more night. They will not need the sight of a lamp or the light of the sun, for the Lord God, the spider, will give them light, and they will reign forever and ever. I am coming soon. My reward is with me, and I will give to each person according to what they have done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Blessed are those who abandon their lives to me, that they may have the right to the tree of knowledge and may travel down the river into the sea. Outside are the sick women, those who practice magic arts, the sexually immoral, the murderers, the idolaters, and everyone who loves and practices falsehood. I have sent my messenger turtle to give you this testimony for the people. I am the root and the offspring and the bright morning star. He who testifies to these things says, yes, I am coming soon. Amen. Come, Lord God, come, spider. The grace of the spider be with turtle's people. Amen. May his reign be glorious. Here lies the kingdom of the end. Man. As the final syllable echoed across the abyss of the hole, the boy felt the air around him constrict. Something sharp and cold and metallic brushed against his arm as sticky thread pulled his arms tight around his chest.
No, please, stop, please.
Was the spider's only reply, staining the air with his breath. The spider wrapped the boy in the hole over and over, each string stretching and bending and twirling and wrapping.
Stop, no, let me go, stop, don't do this to me.
The boy's legs fused and his neck locked. The sticky thread kept layering, spinning faster and faster. The boy in the hole felt the pressure of the threads on every inch of his body, pressing him into a single shape. He tried resisting, but his body no longer had the strength. He felt the string pass over his ear and across his eyes and over his mouth. The cocoon was nearly complete.
I won't be able to breathe. I'm going to die. Stop. Please, I'm begging you.
The final thread covered his nostrils. The boy tried inhaling, but the threads blocked the air. The boy gasped, suffocating. The spider laughed, a sound like vented steam.
Help! Anyone, please. Help.
The boy in the hole pushed and pressed, but the thread was like steel, solid. The darkness of the hole became replaced by a nothingness, and the boy did what he had always done. He retreated inwards. Inside the water drop, inside the forest, inside the hole, inside the cocoon, the boy retreated, deep inside.
The room. The walls were made of dried mud, and the floor was covered with straw. In the center of the room, the boys saw a crooked table and an extinguished candle. The curtains were drawn, and the door was shut, and there was no light in the room. And yet, the boy could still see. The boy reached out towards the candle, running his finger along the melted wax. He thought of the old women and their candles and their stories. The boy sat on the floor and stared at the candle. I miss the old woman with sunken eyes. I miss her kindness and her care. I miss her smile and her wrinkles. I miss making her breakfast. I miss her hugs. I miss her very much. She would know what to do. Maybe she'll come to me here, like she once did. Time passed, or maybe it didn't. The light in the room did not change. No one came to knock on the door. The boy did not move. The boy thought about all of the stories. How is Turtle a book and a person and a prophecy all at the same time? Why does everyone in the world seem to know who he is but me? Who is Honeybun and where is she? Is this place really the water drop? Does that mean I am inside a drop of water? How did I get inside of the water drop? Did the Bible really bring me here just so the spider could trap me? Even the book has abandoned me. How can any of this be real? Is any of this real? The boy wrestled his thoughts, but each of his ideas seemed to crumble like sand when he grasped at them. He slammed his fist against the mud wall, but it did not budge. He pulled and pushed hard at the door, but it was locked. The window was sealed over. There was no way in, and there was no way out. The stillness of the room felt real and alive. The stillness sat next to the boy and leaned its head against his shoulder. Next to the stillness, the boy noticed the stillness within his own body. His stomach no longer barked, and his tongue sat comfortably. His blood swam quietly, and his heartbeat fluttered like a butterfly wing. The room became an absence, and in the absence, the boy dreamed. The night air is cold but refreshing. The crescent moon smiles down at the boy as he lies in the monkey grass watching the stars. The crickets and the katydids chitter and chatter while the bullfrogs and the toads hoot and holler. Somewhere far away, a coyote laughs. The night sky unfolds like an old, worn picnic blanket dotted with holes. The seers twinkle like a choir as they sing their lunar hymns. Cosmic dust rains down upon the earth. The boy lifts his arm and points his finger at the morning star, Venus. With the morning star at the center, he traces the shape of a head shedding great bundles of stars. He guides his finger in a straight line from one star to the next, down towards the shoulders, arms, body, and legs, each trailing threads of light. The constellation fills the entire night sky, a great figure dancing, sending tendrils of stars into the cosmos. A new star shoots across the night sky in a flash. The boy makes a wish. The star pulses, leaving behind trails of magenta and violet, staining the blanket of the sky. The star rockets towards Venus. Her target is true. The collision tears a gaping hole in the blanket. The night sky ripples and folds, and the seers are unveiled in full. The brightness overwhelms the boy's vision, but his eyes adjust. There, above him, in the shattered remnants of the night sky, he sees people of light, frog nebulas and cosmic crocodiles, wormhole horses and solar octopi. At the heart of the sky's tear, there is a black hole in the emptiness of the morning star. The boy stares at the light of the seers and the darkness of the black hole. His eyes soak in the fractured sky until he sees a face emerge from the event horizon of the black hole. He sees himself looking down the hole. He looks up and he looks down and he sees himself in the earth and in the sky. He reaches out and his fingers meet somewhere between earth and sky. He lifts himself up, pulling himself down. The boy embraces himself, burying his face in his own hair and the crook of his own neck. The boy holds himself, and together again, the boy spins, dancing. The boy will wake up from his dream, and when he wakes up, the candle on the table will be lit. The boy will stare into the flame. Inside the water drop, inside the forest, inside the hole, inside the cocoon, inside the room, inside the boy's chest, something will begin to glow. The light will grow beyond the edges of the boy's skin. The light will consume the room. The cocoon will glow. Initially, the glow will be subtle, but soon the cocoon will grow bright enough to illuminate the deep recesses of the hole. The glow will expose a vast tangle of cobwebs, and a spider will cower from the truth. The truth will lift the glowing cocoon from the hole. In the arms of the truth, Turtle will emerge from the glowing cocoon. Wholly formed and adorned with green, loping tendrils, Turtle will find his promise. Turtle will dance. In the light of the truth, under the spray of turtles spinning on a dying world, an old book bound in faded green leather will flip open to its final page.
In the ending. And there it is, the great undoing. The folding of shadows into themselves, the warping of the wood's surface, bending until it cracks, shreds and splinters rocket across the cosmos. The ache. The moment before the drip drops off the end of a blade of grass, a swaying and a leaning, feeling the weight of a world, a gravity ignorant to the flimsy leash of time. Honeybun sobs and watches as the water drop falls from her finger into the rushing water. Turtle swings in looping circles, sending great rain clouds in a gyring vortex across the face of the world. The book grows wet with time. The words begin to shake off of the pages. With 8 little hands, God grasps at the strings of sentences and facts, collecting them like balloons, carrying him up and away into the abyss, the nothingness of the kingdom of heaven. The pages are soaked, the letters melting, the whole truth dissolved. Honeybun cries, still stuck to the threads, and so Turtle, arms wide, Green ropes dripping, reaches out and holds her, brings her close and spins even faster. The shredded droplets, dyed dark with powerful words, scatter across the walls and beyond the sky, past the river and beyond the foundations of a forgotten orphanage. The water drops gyre, and the world spins with them, shaking with thundering, melting into the spray of loose words. In Turtle's arms, Honeybun laughs as Turtle whistles a sweet melody, a dance of life, of liberation.
After the ending. Oh, thank God, sweet baby, my Honeybun, there you are. Her mama shouts as she scoops Honeybun into her arms and pulls her to her chest. Where have you been? We've been looking everywhere for you. You scared me so bad. Honeybun cries into her mama's chest, and her mama cries into her baby hair. The bellies of the clouds above burn with shocks of red as the sun retreats beneath the tree line. The blush of the sky bounces off the rushing waters of the river, painting the reflection of Honeybun and her mama. I've got you now. It's okay. Shh. Mama's got you. Mama says as she rocks Honeybun in a gentle arc. Mama begins to whistle a soft, sweet song, Honeybun's melody. The song slows the crying child's tears until her two mossy eyes open to look up at her mama. The child admires her mama's pointy chin and her round nose. Honeybun looks into her mama's emerald eyes, dazzling gems. Honeybun reaches towards those eyes and her mama catches her hand, kissing each finger, each knuckle a treasure. A dimness settles over the world, and a warm breeze carries the smell of honeysuckles. Mama whistles Honeybun's melody as she carries her back towards the yard, back home. Honeybun watches her mama's face as her lips move, solid and fluid, a sight and a sound. Honeybun giggles and snuggles closer to her mama's chest. The half moon rises, and the stars flicker like candles. The birds sleep soundly in their nests, and the fish slow their swimming. The worms squish against the earth, and the clouds stroll towards the horizon. The trees clatter their branches, and the frogs creak and croak. In her mama's arms, Honeybun goes home. The river flows.